Garcia starts the third and drives one the other way. Down the line, if it's fair, he's got another! He does! Adolis Garcia owning October! Playing the villain role to perfection.
Tom, take it away.
Here's the fly ball. Hold on 1 second. Back goes to the wall, and Adolis Garcia has hit another home run. Impossible. His fifth in the last 4 games. He owns Houston. Grounded to second. 2 years removed from losing 100. The Rangers have won the pennant. And they will play in the World Series for the first time since 2011.
Well, we have one more thing to do before we let these guys go party. It's the American League Championship MVP. There is no doubt. Adolis Garcia, come get your hardware.
Why does this happen every single year? Every single year, it has to be a former Cardinal that goes out there and wins the ALCS MVP. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. That audio is courtesy of Fox yesterday as the Texas Rangers go out there and defeat the Houston Astros. They end up winning that series 4-3, and it is Adolis Garcia who ends up winning the ALCS MVP. Alex, as you can imagine, this stirred up some Cardinals fans last night.
What? No.
Adolis Garcia in that series was spectacular. He put together a historic performance, and he deserved to win ALCS MVP. 15 RBI in that series, more than anyone has ever produced in a single postseason series in the history of the baseball game. We've been playing this game for quite some time.
No.
4 straight games with a home run. That is tied for the most in any playoff series in the history of baseball. He is the second player in Major League Baseball series to finish with 4 hits and a home run in a Game 7. So, pretty good stuff for one Adolis Garcia. And as you probably know, Adolis Garcia once donned a Cardinals uniform.
What? Yeah, but it was only for like 5 games. They saw what they needed to see from him, and then they said, you're not good enough.
21 games. 21 games is how long he was in a Cardinals uniform.
That's 5 games in Cardinal years.
17 at-bats.
Yikes.
17 at-bats is what he was given the opportunity to do here in St. Louis. Now, Alex, a lot of Cardinals fans today are mad. They're angry. They're upset. Because you've got, on one hand, tonight, Zach Gallen, who's going to be on the mound, most likely, for the Arizona Diamondbacks at some point, coming out of the bullpen. He's amazing. Potential Cy Young candidate. In Texas, you've got Adolis Garcia. In Tampa, you've got Randy Arozarena. These guys would sure look good in a Cardinals uniform, and all of them are elsewhere. Why? What happened? Alex, I think I have a little bit of a different takeaway on this than most.
Oh, this will be good.
Adolis Garcia was DFA'd by the Cardinals after the 2019 season. Now he's ALCS MVP. That's where the conversation seems to be ending for a lot of folks. There's no talk about what took place between the end of the 2019 season when Garcia was DFA'd by the Cardinals and now when he is, this season, a legit all-star for the Texas Rangers and now the ALCS MVP. Well, let's have the conversation about what actually took place between those 5 years of baseball. At the time that he was DFA'd, he was going to be going into his age 27 season. He had a .250 batting average down in AAA for the Cardinals. He struck out 1 in every 3 plate appearances. In 21 games in the big leagues, he had a .118 batting average. In other words, he was Luke and Baker light. He came up to the big leagues, looked completely overmatched in very few at-bats, albeit, but was solid. He wasn't even as productive in the minor leagues as what you saw this year from Luke and Baker. So they decided to DFA him. At the time, honestly, it was defensible because you look at what they had in their outfield. Man, the next year, the Cardinals outfield outperformed anything that you saw from Adolis Garcia. Why? Because Adolis Garcia didn't even play for the Rangers the next year. So he needed to be on the 40-man roster. And guess what? The Rangers then decide, we're going to DFA him too going into the 2020 season. Or coming out of the 2020 season. So prior to 2021, any team in Major League Baseball, all they had to do, Alex, was say, we will allow you a spot not on our 26-man roster, our 40-man roster, and you can come play for us. Not a single one of them took the bite. Not a single one of them. Every single team in Major League Baseball said, that guy's not worth a roster spot for us. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do what very few people actually are willing to. Give the player the credit. The player developed, and why he developed is because he was given the opportunity and time in Texas. You know why that happened in Texas? Because they sucked. They were terrible. And so it became about development for them and not about on-field results. That is something that when you are contending every year the way that the Cardinals hope to and plan to and believe they will, they don't have time for that. And that is how you end up with Randy Arozarena down in Tampa Bay. That is how you end up with Adolis Garcia down in Texas. These teams had the benefit of time. Now, for Tampa, they identified talent. The Cardinals went with defense, which everybody in our audience seems to love at the time, and now tells me that that's why Mike Shildt was the greatest manager in the history of baseball. Well, that also had the unintended consequence of sending Randy Arozarena elsewhere because he went with the defenders over Randy, who was a bit of a liability defensively at the time. So I say all of that to say this. Yes, the Cardinals missed on Adolis Garcia. So did every single team in Major League Baseball as recently as 3 seasons ago. The Rangers are the ones that get to write the history because they're the ones that ended up with him because he was already there. So he was just sent down to the minors because that's where his stuff was. So that's where I'm at on this, Alex.
Well, first of all, I'd like to send a future congratulations to one of Dylan Carlson or Tyler O'Neill for winning a future CS MVP whenever they get traded this offseason.
Well, the lesson learned is we got to keep our talent.
Well, that's true. Or congrats to you on keeping your starting job this season in the outfield for the Cardinals. But you're right. Like, you see what happens with the Garcia, and the initial reaction is, oh, great, another Randy Arozarena. But the difference in this one is, like,
Everything. Literally everything.
Like, and do you know how infuriating Adolis Garcia would have been for Cardinals fans from 2018 up until the year he hits 30 bombs in the season? People would be screaming from their mountaintops going, get rid of this guy. He strikes out and only hits home runs. What else does he do? We don't need that. Like, that's what we'd be talking about right now. So Adolis Garcia winning the MVP, yeah, you know what? It sucks. It sucks when you see guys that were on your team go somewhere else and have success. You know how much it burned my saddle when Ben Bishop used to just win everything?
Oh, we can talk about current if you want with the Blues.
It pisses me off. But, like, this is sports.
And Jake Wallman, did you enjoy watching him with the Blues? How's that going with him up in Detroit?
He's not doing much right now. It's fine. He's like a secondary defenseman. Let's not get into this, all right?
25 minutes a night.
Yeah, it's trash. Yeah, it's for a bad team, right?
Vince
That's what
Dunn,
they say.
too.
Yeah, Vince Dunn's in the Norris Trophy conversation. That's
Yeah.
always fun. Norris Trophy's a joke.
Sometimes guys end up developing when they're given opportunities elsewhere. It happens.
And every general manager identifies talent incorrectly. And the problem is you're focused so much on the Cardinals and John Mozeliak. Let's list off the Zach Gallons and the Sandy Alcantara's and the Adolis Garcia. Yeah, exactly. But this is what happens. So as much as it sucks to watch Adolis Garcia win that, I can imagine every other general manager is sitting at home in their scuba gear suit, crying into their bowl of popcorn that Adolis Garcia, they just didn't give him that chance.
Yep. Because they could have had him too.
Yeah.
Hey, you think the the Yankees, would like to have an Adolis Garcia? You think the Dodgers would have liked to have an Adolis Garcia? Of course. Every team in Major League Baseball could use Adolis Garcia right now because he's an incredible baseball player, man. And he's fun as hell. Like, this guy is going to be awesome to watch on the biggest stage because the guy just has a flair for the dramatic. So credit to him, man. But to your point on Cardinals fans, probably if he was here wanting to give up on him every moment, let me give you a couple of the years in which that would have taken
place. The text line is very upset that we're defending the front office.
And again, we've been critical of them all year long. They deserved every ounce of the criticism this year. They were wrong on just about everything. So
take off your Mo underwear,
They
BK.
deserve all of the criticism in the world, but just not for this. Like, if we're going to be fair, we can be critical while also being fair. And it's unfair in my mind to be critical of this specific move.
It would be different if the Rangers didn't DFA him, I think. If the Rangers don't DFA him, then I could hear the argument of, well, they let him slip away. But
Maybe,
they
but
cut him off the 40-man.
Did it take this long for him to continue to have success in your scenario? Because I actually don't think even then I would have a whole lot of criticism for him because it took 5 years for him to become this kind of a player. And that's not a bad thing inherently, but it took until he was like 30 years old to really become a productive big leaguer. So in 2021, he had a 740 OPS. He got on base 28% of the time, which is horrific. He struck out 1 in every 3 at-bats. Again, horrific. His OPS that season was worse than Harrison Bader or Dylan Carlson.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't going to play for you in 2021 because you didn't have a DH at that point in time. All right, continuing on. 2022, 755 OPS. Again, an on-base percentage right at 300, which is terrible. Struck out still 30% of the time, which is a terrible number. He had basically the same OPS that year as Juan Yepes. So where's he playing? Where's he fitting into your plans? He didn't. He didn't fit into the Cardinals' plans. He wasn't going to get the playing time that he needed in order to develop as a player. He goes on elsewhere, has success, ends up getting the opportunities that were necessary. By the way, used the COVID year to be able to get bigger, stronger, faster. Credit to him for all of that as well. Adolis Garcia is a success story in Major League Baseball. He is a miss for every team in the sport because any team could have had him multiple times. And they decided not to. So credit to the player. I will be critical of the Cardinals for a lot. This is just not one of those opportunities where I think it is justified.
Couple of things. One, somebody texted in and said, Tyler O'Neill is our Adolis Garcia. It's just that one had a happy ending, which I kind of agree with. You're kind of doing the same thing with Tyler O'Neill right now. The other one that says is, yes, this all sucks, but my bigger issue is the Cardinals never get it right. I know it feels like
Lars
that.
Nootbaar? Do we just pretend like Lars Nootbaar doesn't exist?
Well,
or Nolan Gorman doesn't exist?
Or Brendan Donovan or Tommy Edman? I mean, like...
Or Jordan Walker?
This is the problem. Like, recency bias, where you see guys to go on and have success. It's like, well, we never have success with this. But, like, they've had plenty of success. And here I am again, just defending the front office. But there's been success right now because the team has been bad for a couple of years. That's where it feels like that there's zero success by this team. But look at what they have on the roster and look at what they have in the minor league systems. They have success. The problem is identifying talent when you're trading, which is always my concern with this Cardinals team.
I think it's more so just people are upset because like they haven't seen their guys star in October.
People are upset because the Cardinals are losing. Period. End of story. That's it.
Well, and like not just losing because they were bad this year, but because they keep losing in October.
Yeah, they can't do anything in a wild card or a 3-game series.
Lars Nootbaar is a success, but you just haven't seen it in October. And I think that's all this circles down to is if the Cardinals were a team that were the Diamondbacks this year, we're in the NLCS, we're not even talking about Adolis Garcia.
By the way, the Diamondbacks weren't very good this year. Like, can we just be honest about it? The Diamondbacks were a super mediocre team all season long. And guess what? They're a game away from winning the World Series. Or from going to the World Series. That's what October is. Like, some of the guys that have starred in October for them, Alec Thomas, for example, I really like Alec Thomas. I am a sucker for his type of game. He's a defensive first center fielder that plays with speed and pizzazz. That is like prototypical BK player right there. A left-handed bat, like Alec Thomas has every quality that I need in a player. He was a terrible hitter this year. An absolutely awful hitter, like 25% below league average. Cardinals fans would have been begging for him to be pulled out from the lineup, and it would have been justified. Guess what? He's been really good for them so far in the postseason. He's had some big-time moments for the Diamondbacks. That's what October is. October is a moment where even guys that had down seasons can go out there and star for your baseball team. Think about the Cardinals of yesteryear. Think about the guys that come to mind immediately for you that had star-level moments or helped you end up going to a World Series. Whether it's pitchers, hitters, whoever. There's dozens of them, regardless of what era of Cardinals baseball you were a fan of first, that you can immediately draw back upon and say to yourself, man, that guy was awesome.
Like David Freese.
Pretty good one. But like you can go beyond that. There's dozens of them here in this organization alone. That's what's happening right now across Major League Baseball. So Adolis Garcia, awesome story for the sport. Awesome story just for himself. I will be critical of the Cardinals with the Randy Arozarena thing. I think they missed there. I think they got that wrong. I think it was a talent evaluation issue. And I also think they just put way too much emphasis on getting a left-handed starter that can come in and help them in their rotation. So I will be critical of them for that. On this one, them missing on Adolis Garcia along with the rest of Major League Baseball? Nah, man. I'm going to go ahead and give them a pass on this one. And if you think that that's us, like, caping for the organization, more power to you. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, Alex, are we seeing some signs of life from the Blues power play? And what do you think of the changes that they made to that unit yesterday? We'll get into that coming up at 11:30. But coming up next, watch football game last night. There was a 49ers team that was on the screen that didn't resemble the one that I saw 2 weeks ago. Are they hitting a speed bump, or has this train gone off the tracks? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Purdy back to pass him, and he needs to sack him. He loops it over the middle. Intercepted! Yes! The Vikings beat the Niners, and Cam Bynum has a 2-interception night. These sour-ass Niners can go ahead and get out of town.
Yikes.
That was Paul Allen, one of my favorite radio hosts in the country, one of my favorite play-by-play guys in the NFL. That audio is courtesy of the Vikings Radio Network. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Alex, that was a surprise last night. I didn't have that one on my bingo card. The Minnesota Vikings, who came into the game 2-4, at home on Monday Night Football against the San Francisco 49ers, who yesterday our text line corrected us when we said, hey, it's the Eagles and the Chiefs and then everybody else. Our text line was like, hey, what about the 49ers? Yeah, what about them? Are they right now, Alex, hitting a speed bump, where they're going to get this stuff corrected and it's going to be fine, especially as they get healthier? Or are we seeing the train go off the tracks a little bit in San Francisco?
I kind of am. Look, I don't think it's going to go off the tracks in terms of this team's going to miss out on the playoffs. They're still going to be a Super Bowl contender because you have way too many weapons, and they're dealing with some injuries right now. But I'm a little concerned in terms of the interceptions that we're seeing with Brock Purdy and the decision makings. I mean, you go, 5 weeks straight, 6 weeks straight with 0 interceptions, and then back-to-back weeks you've thrown 3 total against a decent defense in Cleveland and then a defense in Minnesota that I don't know how the hell they pulled that off against Brock Purdy. So it's going to go off the tracks in terms of starting to question Brock Purdy's ability to lead this team deep into a postseason run. But I don't think it's going to go off the tracks in terms of not being a Super Bowl contender because they still have McCaffrey, Ayuk, Samuel, and they still have Kyle Shanahan, and he's going to get the best out of whoever his quarterback is.
Yeah, I think they'll get things kind of turned around, but I think you saw last night that, and I've said this and gotten pushback on it, Brock Purdy's just not a difference maker. He's a game manager, and he can do what is needed when all the weapons are there in San Francisco. But no Debo, no Trent Williams last night, and in a drive in which they had a chance to win the game down by 5, he's not going to be a guy that's a quarterback that you fear in the NFL. Like, they got the ball last night, and I went, okay, they might be able to score, but, I wasn't too terrified that the 49ers were going to go on a drive in the 2-minute drill. And what's Brock Purdy do? He goes on the run and throws a terrible pass, and it's intercepted. So I think they can turn it around, and I think when they're healthy, they still are one of those. I think they're probably the second-best team in the NFC behind the Philadelphia Eagles, and they could get to the Super Bowl if things go their way, if they run into the Eagles or the Eagles get knocked out in the playoffs at some point. But the biggest difference for me is Brock Purdy is better than what they had when they got to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, but he's not significantly better. He still falls into that kind of Kirk Cousin range of quarterback to where he's a good quarterback, he's a good game manager, but he's not a difference maker for you.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys have said. I think it's a speed bump. I think this team's going to be fine, ultimately. I think their defense is still really good. They have had a pass rush issue where that hasn't really shown up over the last couple of weeks, which is weird.
They didn't sack Cousins at all last night, which was surprising.
It's weird. That's their identity. Everything about this team is built on, hey, we get after the passer and we are going to be amazing offensively, specifically in the running game. Well, their running game hasn't been as good lately, and their pass rush hasn't existed lately. If they get those two things corrected, which I think will happen, I think Christian McCaffrey getting healthy, Trent Williams getting healthy will go a long way in that regard. That being said, their schedule ain't easy, man. You see what they have coming up. So next week they are at home against Cincinnati. Cincinnati, I believe, is coming off their bye week, if I'm not mistaken, going into that one. So hopefully Joe Burrow will be at or near 100% in that one. Then the 49ers have their bye week. Coming out of the bye, Alex, they go to Jacksonville. They're at home against Tampa Bay. And then at Seattle, home against Philly, home against Seattle. That stretch that we're looking at over the next 6 weeks and 5 games, that's going to tell us everything we need to know. That will determine, is this just a blip on the radar, or is this thing going in the wrong direction quicker than any of us could have possibly anticipated? If they come out of that and they're like 3-2, in that stretch of games, so you're talking about a team that's 8-4 after week 13, they're fine. If they go anything worse than that, I'm going to have some serious questions about whether or not they're a legitimate contender for a Super Bowl. They're still good. Super Bowl contention, though, I think will be in question after that stretch if they end up going under 500.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the Kansas City Chiefs. I've seen the Philadelphia Eagles, and when I've seen those two teams play and I've seen them at their worst, they're still competitive. And San Francisco in these back-to-back games, it's been competitive. They've had the chance to come back and win, but I never once felt like San Francisco was going to come back in that game, if that makes sense. Point, yeah. Whereas I watch Kansas City, I watch Philadelphia, every second of those games, I'm like, okay, they're going to come back and probably win this one.
So let's talk a little bit about the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to open this up to you guys because I don't want people thinking that I'm some homer over here.
Why would they do that?
I'm the Chiefs fan, and so I'm going to say all the positive things about the Chiefs, blah, 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 blah.
I think they're awful. I think they should trade Mahomes.
Do you know the Chiefs are the first team to be top 5 in offense, defense, and special teams by week 7 since the 1999 St. Louis Rams? Let me say that again. The only team in the last 25 years to be top 5 in offense, defense, and special teams at this point in the season were your greatest show on turf, St. Louis Rams. and now the Kansas City Chiefs in 2023. Chiefs right now are number 4 on offense, number 5 on defense, and number 2 on special teams. The other teams to accomplish this feat, the 1984 Washington football team, the 1985 Bears, you may remember them, the 1990 Giants, the 91 Washington football team, and the 1996 Packers. 4 of these 5 teams ended up going on to win the Super Bowl, by the way.
Hot damn.
Alex, are the Chiefs still the best team in the NFL after all of us talking about how their offense was putrid for the first, 6 weeks of the year?
Yeah, which is wild for me to say because they're the best team in the NHL with, nobody as a wide receiver for them. I know they've got guys, but it's nobody that you'd write home about thinking like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith like the Philadelphia Eagles have, or Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. Your playmakers are the same playmakers that got it done last year and that have consistently gotten it done with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. And they're still the best team right now, I would say, in the AFC, arguably in the NFL, because I can hear the argument for Philadelphia. San Francisco's taking a dip back. But, yeah, I don't know how they keep doing it other than the fact that when you have 2 of the elites playing on the offensive side and then the elite Chris Jones on the other side, makes sense that you're always in this position.
Yeah, I think they are the best team in the NFL. I mean, their defense just puts them over the top now. And you got the best quarterback in the NFL. And though, I agree with what you said about the wide receiver core, they probably need another wide receiver. I mean, Travis Kelce is essentially their A.J. Brown. That's how they treat him. I know he's listed as a tight end, but that's what he is. I mean, he has 10, 11 receptions per game. He is their version of that go-to wide receiver. So do they need a wide receiver? Probably. It would probably make them a little bit more balanced to have 2 guys there. But I don't even know if they need that because they've just got Travis Kelce, and he is such a difference maker. He's like their cheat code. As much as Tyreek Hill is a cheat code for the Dolphins, Travis Kelce is the Chiefs' cheat code.
I still think they need another wide receiver, though.
I do, too.
They need...
it doesn't need to be anything great, by the way.
You just need something.
Hunter Renfrow from the Las Vegas Raiders, they have just completely punted on the idea of him being a part of their roster. Fine. Bring him to Kansas City. Kendrick Bourne, who had a really nice week this week for the New England Patriots. Solid possession receiver. Great. Bring him to Kansas City. Somebody that fits into that kind of criteria, that it's 3rd and 6, get open. They need somebody other than Travis Kelce that can fit that criteria. I think Rashee Rice is building into that. I think Rashee Rice is legitimately good. You got to have more than 2 passing options on any given play. MVS is not consistent enough to be that guy. McCole Hardman certainly is not consistent enough to be that guy. We've seen at this point Sky Moore, not that guy. Kadarius Toney, not that guy. Go find one. Go get yourself somebody, and you could get it for a day 3 pick. Those guys exist out there for pretty cheap at the deadline. By the way, the deadline is now 1 week away, so we're getting close to it's time when these teams are going to be having to make some serious deals. Chiefs are at Denver this week, and then next week is the real test over in Germany against the Miami Dolphins. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun to watch. I agree with you guys. Chiefs right now, best team in the NFL, and strangely enough, it's because of the defense. That defense has a chance to be top 3 in the league by the end of the season. This week was the first week they had their full allotment of pass rushers available. Chris Jones and Charles Omenihu, who came off of his suspension, they might be getting better instead of getting worse.
Aren't they adding Frank Clark, or is he already on the team?
Sounds like he might be coming in this week at some point, too.
Good.
Run it back. Tanner Hendricks, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we'll get to questions and answers. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. By the way, you guys can always watch the show on YouTube. We are live for every single show here on BK and Ferrario. 101 ESPN STL is where you go to find it. You can watch us on the studio cams powered by the Air Alliance team. Coming up next, the power play has yet to score a goal, but are we starting to see some signs of life from the unit? And what did Alex make of the changes that the Blues decided to make at morning skate yesterday? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendrickson, your Day Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Blues back in action tonight as they visit the Winnipeg Jets. We've got pregame coverage starting at 6:45 with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 7:45 tonight. And the Game 7 of the NLCS is tonight between the Philadelphia Phillies and the Arizona Diamondbacks. At 7:07 will be first pitch in that series as the Texas Rangers advanced to the World Series last night. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road shop 24/7 at londoff.com. Autoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Blues back in action tonight against the Winnipeg Jets. Pre-game coverage for that one with Alex and Joe starts at 6:45. That's all, of course, right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Alex, the power play has yet to score a goal this season. That's not ideal. They're one of, what'd you say yesterday, 2 teams, T-Bone, that can say that?
Them in Washington.
Washington's also the only team that has not led in a game.
It's not what you want. It's certainly not what you want.
I think Ovechkin has not scored yet.
How about this stat, too, from our buddy Matthew DeFranks at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch? The last 5, I think it was the last 5 years, team that has scored the last power play goal has missed the playoffs every year.
Well, that makes sense.
Oh, what's the second to last team that scored a power play goal?
Exactly.
He didn't have that stat.
Okay, I should check that one out then. Yeah, Ovechkin does not have a goal yet this season.
Speaking of Matthew DeFranks, in his piece earlier today in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, he wrote a little bit about the Blues power play unit. He said the Blues have 4 power plays in their last 2 games. They've generated a total of 9 shots on those 4 power plays. Those 4 power plays have accumulated 12 scoring chances, 5 high-danger chances. In the first 2 games of the season, as a little bit of a comparison, the Blues allowed as many shorthanded shots as they produced with the man advantage. So the power play is starting to get opportunities that you would expect, Alex. They're just not going in the back of the net just yet. If they continue playing in like this, is the opposite of what I've said about the Blues at 5-on-5. If the Blues power play continues producing opportunities the way they have in their last 2 games, this thing's going to get back on track quicker rather than later. They have also made a shift to the way that this unit is going to operate. Brandon Saad has gone up to the top unit. He's going to push Braden Shin over to the bumper. Kasperi Kapanen has moved from the bumper spot on the first unit down to the second unit. They wanted to be able to have Brandon Saad with his line mates, essentially, because they've got some chemistry now with Thomas and Kyrou. Alex, do you think we're starting to see the power play get back on track? And what do you think of the decision to switch up the power play units a little bit?
I like the decision to switch it. And look, Brandon Saad's playing in the position that is Pavel Buchnevich is. And when Buch comes back, I would imagine he's going to go right there. But you're going with the hot line right now, and you're putting the 3 of them together with Braden Shen. I do feel like we're starting to see progress with this. And this is what I anticipated. And look, not scoring a power play goal this many times is concerning. But I didn't expect, most teams don't practice the power play in preseason training camp until the last couple of days. And then you just put it into action once you start playing games. So it's going to take a little bit of time. The last 2 games, and specifically you break it down, it's 2 separate units. So that game against Arizona, they had 5 shots on goal, and it was the unit that Berube started with Kevin Hayes, and the second unit that had Brandon Saad on it, by the way. That's the one that generated 5. That was the best power play shift that I've seen all season. And then that one against Pittsburgh was the first one that Malkin scored the shorthanded goal on. Man, the Blues were inches away from scoring, and Tristan Jarry just kept it out of the net. But you had 3 shots, and that was with your first unit that didn't have Saad on it. So the fact that you had 2 successes with those pieces, and now you're flipping them around, I think is going to bode well for them. Here's the issue. They got to start winning faceoffs.
Oh,
if you lose the faceoff, this team is not very good at getting set and entering the offensive zone on a power play. What teams do is they stand them up on the blue line. So they force them to dump it in because the Blues like to do the fancy drop pass and then the dude skates in really fast. They stand them up at the blue line. They put 4 guys there. That game against Pittsburgh was more of they go behind the net and win the puck battle, have that puck support, and then get set up. If you do that, if you win faceoffs, we're talking about a team that can pass, and they've got a lot of shooters on it.
The biggest thing for me, too, outside of the faceoffs, is they still need a one-time threat on the power play units. Vrad is the only guy that brings it, and he's on that second unit right now. And I've been preaching that since after the second game. And I know they're getting opportunities, and it's starting to look a little bit better. they still need a one-time threat because it's the most dangerous play in hockey.
Question is, who are you
5-on-4.
taking off?
I mean, I would push Thomas down. I really would. He's on that spot on his offhand, and every time he gets the puck, it slows down the power play. Why? Because he has to get it, has to settle, and then he has to either look to pass or he's going to have to just wrist a shot on goal. And a wrister, like, as good as I like, and I like Thomas's shot, it's just not, it's completely different compared to a one-time threat. And that is the one thing that they've been solely missing on this power play since David Perron signed with the Detroit Red Wings. And I think it's why it took a massive drop-off last year, and I think it's why you're continuing to see some struggles this year.
I would like to see Verona on that first unit. I don't mind what they're doing right now. Saad being up there, I think, is going to help them quite a bit. I would also add this. If they continue to put these kinds of chances on net, the unit is going to both units are going to start having some success. Like, you're going to start seeing some of these go in. And, Alex, I would continue on with that. If the Blues end up having, say, a top 10 power play unit this year, I don't know how likely that is. It hasn't looked good enough for me to be there. But in a hypothetical scenario where they get there, it changes a lot about how I feel about this team, because then you can essentially just bleed out the clock at 5-on-5, wait for your power play opportunities, use that as where you get your offense, and then just say, you know what? That's kind of who we are. Like, you become a team that is a ground and pound offense that wins with defense in the NFL. That's the NFL equivalent of this. Like, you're Iowa football. It's ugly. It's going to take, just like with Iowa, some special teams opportunities. Maybe you need a safety to be able to win a football game. You need a pick six. You need some of those opportunities to go in for you. And that's kind of how the Blues are playing right now. They're grinding it out at 5-on-5, hoping and praying, hey, don't get anything against us at 5-on-5. We'll try to get our rush opportunities going the other way. See if those go in, as they did on Saturday. And if not, hopefully it's able to draw some kind of a penalty for us. And then, boom, we get back out there on the power play unit. That's kind of that is the formula for this team to be a contender.
That's what they've done in the past. Prior to 2 years ago.
Not to this extent. This is more boring, and this is less successful at 5-on-5 than they have been in previous years.
Again, understand, in 5-on-5, you're right. Like, possession has been more in the neutral zone and the defensive zone than the offensive zone. But, I mean, this is how the Blues like to work. They like to work boring hockey. They like to bore the opponent. It's not the high-powered offense that we saw in the past. And I got a little too excited and over my skis in preseason thinking that we'd see more offense. And I think the offense will get an uptick because it takes time. We saw it against Pittsburgh. Now you're getting into a little bit more of flow where you're playing more consistent games rather than 4 or 5 days off in between. But, like, this is what Craig Berube wants. He wants low-scoring games, and he wants a team that has the power play opportunity to capitalize. You know, the other thing that I just looked up as to why that number one unit was struggling so much? Torrey Krug has a total of 5 shots in 4 games.
He's got to be better.
You got to start putting the puck. Now, and I know Torrey Krug is a guy that likes to pass. This is where the one-time play comes in. And if it's not working, I would look at a Verona because he would work well like a Pasternak did in Krug with that quick one-time release. But Krug's got to put more pucks on net. Because if you're going to have Saad as the guy that's in front, or if it's going to be Booch, or it's Kapanen, whomever's playing there, they're getting to the front. They're doing what Craig Berube has asked, but the pucks aren't getting there. So you got to start taking it away from the shin pads of the defensive players and start putting it on the net.
It looks like Jordan Binnington, first goalie off the ice today.
What?
I would have expected somebody else.
Big news up in up in Winnipeg. Blues, it appears, going with Jordan Binnington in net tonight.
And so Connor Hellebuyck's on the other side.
They're going to have a chance to win this one, so that's nice.
Right.
Now that we know that
you don't need to be so negative towards Hofer.
It's definitely going to be like a 1-0, 2-1 game.
Oh, dude, Winnipeg. But Winnipeg's been going through it. Hellebuyck's given up like...
Yeah, you told me that against Arizona, too.
Dude, have you seen Hellebuyck's numbers?
I don't care.
Okay.
Doesn't matter
Good to
against
know.
this team.
We don't want to be in the offensive zone.
Yeah, no, this is...
Unless we're on a power play.
We
opt out.
They signed Connor
power plays. We're like, no,
we're good.
They signed Connor Hellebuyck to a 7-year contract worth $8.25. In the last 3 games, he's given up 3 goals, 5 goals, and 4 goals.
Fine.
He's also gone up against Florida, LA, and Edmonton. Let's say the competition level is going to be a little different tonight. No disrespect.
I don't know. Binnington's made the saves when he's needed to.
He has. He's been great. Jordan Binnington has been outstanding so far this year, and that's why they've got a chance tonight in net. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Questions and answers coming up next. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. T-Bone, let's start with this for you.
Yeah.
Guys, after his amazing performance this year, do you think City will be able to keep Roman Berkey around?
I would say yes, probably for another year. I don't know what his contract looks like, and I haven't heard any buzz of anybody that would want to acquire him outside of St. Louis. So I'd say probably, if anything, you probably got one more year. Roman Berkey would be my guess before potential Europe teams start calling.
Give him a contract for life. That's my status.
Give him a key to the city.
I think he's earned it.
They built this city.
He's making $1.5 million.
Yeah, that ain't going to happen.
He's, I think he's the highest paid player on the team.
Yeah, he is. But I think MLS, like, their whole cap system is weird. Because,
it's weird.
I think two or three guys don't count
players.
a cap against the cap, and he's one of them for sure.
It's a 3-year deal that he signed whenever he came over. So
probably after next year, you could hear some buzz of a team wanting to pay to get his transfer. But he could honestly just play out all 3 years. It just depends if there's interest over in Europe, because he's not going to want to leave for a job playing in Denmark or a job playing in the Netherlands.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 618. Guys, anybody else excited for the NBA tonight? I certainly am. A couple of good games. Lakers Nuggets, that's going to be a lot of fun. And then Suns versus Warriors as well. You guys have any NBA takes going into this upcoming season?
Now, just let me know when the conference finals start.
Talk to me when we get to the playoffs. It's the frozen frenzy tonight. I don't care about NBA.
That's cool. I like what the NHL's doing.
I hope they instill this in postseason play. Like, I hope I really want them, when the postseason starts, to do that first night all Western Conference teams, and then the next night all Eastern Conference teams, and stagger
You want
them.
that until you're doing pregame coverage at 9 o'clock.
I'm going to be doing it either way. The St. Louis Blues, if they're in the playoffs, are playing at the 9 o'clock start. It's how this thing works. Oh, Central Division. They'll play in the West Coast time zone. They don't bleeping care.
I love this Lakers team. That's my take. Is I'm a LeBron honk, and I love the way that they constructed this team.
He's old and
I think it's
washed
really,
up.
really good. So that's one thing that I'm looking forward to.
Makes playoffs.
I also love that Giannis decided to stay.
I heard Stephen A. Smith, our boy on his show, being that's a bad decision.
Why?
I don't listen. I just saw the little lower third.
Sure.
The same reason that the Lions had to prove themselves against Baltimore, which they actually kind of had to.
The team proved themselves to him that they're all in by going out and making this deal for Damian Lillard. We said it at the time. If you trade for Lillard, you're locking yourself in as a contender that you're willing to pay what it takes to be able to get this done. They're going to be in the tax, so they've got Damian Lillard, they've got Giannis Antetokounmpo. The next 3 years, Milwaukee is going to be one of the staples of the NBA.
And Giannis did it for 3 years. And if he's great for 3 years, you win 2 championships, guess what? You get paid again.
Worth every penny.
Yeah.
So those are my biggest takeaways. Otherwise, I think Boston's really interesting because they changed so much going into the season. Otherwise, like, the West is really, really, really deep. I love Oklahoma City, and they might be like the 11th best team in the Western Conference going into the year.
Talk to me in April.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's what I got.
Well, that's the play-in. Talk to me in May.
Yeah, I actually really don't care until they get to the conference finals. I mean, everybody makes the playoffs. You got a stupid in-season tournament this year. Yeah. And then I can guarantee you're not going to see defense tonight. Like, of course not. It's regular season.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, you get 5 championships to give out for your favorite teams for the rest of your life. How are you spreading them out? Who's getting those championships? So, personally and professionally, this is an interesting question.
What, are you going to give it to Luka's future basketball high school championship
Personally,
team?
I would like to give all of these to Mizzou and the Chiefs. Professionally, I would like the Blues and the Cardinals to continue having sustained success. So I'll give one to the Cardinals next year. That would be ideal for us. I'll give one to the Blues in like 5 years. I'll give another one to the Cardinals in 7 years. So that's 3 of them. Give one to Mizzou this year because, come on, let's be real. And then I'll go ahead and give one to the Chiefs this year as well. They've already got 2.
Okay,
so
I don't care about the Chiefs. Give the Tigers one this year. I'll give the Blues one. I'll give the Cardinals one next year. So now I've divvied up 2 of them. And then I'll give Blues the next 3. I'd like to see the Blues go on that, like, sustained
dynasty.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. So I'll go Mizzou this year, Cardinals next year, and then the following year will be the first of 3 straight for the Blues.
I love it.
I would give, I think you guys are right. Giving one of the Cardinals next year would be ideal. I'd probably give, I'd probably give one more to the Cardinals. I'd give one to the Blues. I'd give one to the Rams. And then that fifth one, this may surprise you, because I'm tired of March.
Rams?
I'm tired of March disappointments. I would love to see Illinois win an NCAA title.
That'd be awesome. That's something that I should have gone with. I should have gone with the
football program.
as well.
Yeah, right. But the basketball program, they've been good a lot. And every time we get to March, there's somebody where they just lay an egg.
314-399-9646 is the Air Covered Service text line. Somebody said, why wouldn't you guys give City one for their expansion?
They're already winning it this year.
That is a fair point. I'll take one away from the Chiefs. I'll give it to City instead.
I'm not taking any away from the Blues or the Cardinals. Sorry,
Yeah,
Sid. You got to win it on your own terms.
I'm not going to move it any of mine.
All right, from the 314.
Wow, that's trash. You're not taking it from the Rams, and you're going to keep it?
He didn't give one to the Rams. Guys,
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't. We're going to pretend that.
LA.
What do you do if you're Penn State? James Franklin's a really good coach, clearly, but he's the third best coach in his own conference. Penn State is now 1-9 against Ohio State and 3-16 against top 10 opponents since he came to Penn State. They've won at least 9 games in 5 of the last 6 full seasons. They finished in the top 12 in each of those 5 years. What do? You're a top 12 program, but it feels like they're hitting a glass ceiling every year.
I think you have to move on.
I think you just keep running back.
Oh, okay.
That's where I am. Because
Well, you guys like the same thing over and over and over and over.
I don't think
problem,
you're
though,
improving from James Franklin.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say is you can move on from James Franklin, but sometimes the grass isn't greener on the other side. And I think you've seen programs do this before where they go, we can do better. And then they have to go, no, we were wrong. We can't do better. So I would run it back. The best thing for him is I think Harbaugh is going to probably leave Michigan soon. There seems to be some buzz that he's kind of fed up with being at Michigan.
He's going to go to Penn State?
No, he wants to. No, he's going to leave Michigan altogether.
Gotcha.
There's buzz about him not having much interest in the college game anymore. Maybe he goes back to the NFL, and then it's just okay. Well, they're going to have to figure out how to make it
Cowboys
better.
coach next year. That's what's going to happen there.
Ooh,
I'm okay with
that's
that.
kind of fun.
I mean, let's be honest.
That sounds exciting.
That's
And
a
then
Jerry Jones move in every sense.
Yeah, and then all you got to do is you got to figure out how do you beat Ohio State. And that's not easy, but
Good luck.
I think it's possible. So I would say you just keep running it back with James Franklin. Hell, I would sign up for Brett Bielema to give me 10 wins every year, even if that means he's going to get his butt kicked by Iowa and Wisconsin every year.
That's the thing. Penn State has a lot more history than a place like Illinois, so we got to keep that in mind as well. And they've got a much better recruiting base than Illinois, and this is no shot against Illinois fans. Penn State has one of the most historic
It feels like a piling
fan
on.
bases as well. Penn State is like a top 20 program in the country.
You just had to say that. You didn't have to just shove Illinois down.
You know what? Fair. That's on me.
Nah, he's fine.
I wouldn't move on from James Franklin because you could end up becoming the next Clemson where, okay, cool. You have Dabo Swinney. Unfortunately, your program's done now. You could end up becoming the next Texas A&M. You bring in Jimbo Fisher because he's going to be the one that saves everything, right? He's got all of this history of success. Well, now you're stuck with him and you're not succeeding at all. You go out and get Lincoln Riley. Well, can he build a program? Because he didn't really have to at Oklahoma. He just had everything ready-made for him. And then he continued to sustain that success with really good quarterback play. James Franklin is a program builder. He's got a really good program going right now. You consistently win 9, 10, 11 games every year. Just got to wait for your turn, man. It sucks. It's not fun while you're waiting, but it's the reality. All right, coming up next. Last night we saw the downside, Alex. There's been a whole lot of upside to Aaron Nola in these playoffs. Last night you saw the downside. Even that does not really concern me. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my insurance agent. She is Tracy Bibb. Her and her team at Allstate are the best. I switched over to them about 5 years ago. Didn't realize what I was getting when I switched over, and that is the best customer service. That is making sure that I'm always in communication with her. She's the one always checking in, making sure we're happy with the coverage, making sure we understand what falls underneath that umbrella. If prices rise, she's keeping us posted on all of those things, and that is so important when it comes to your home and your car insurance, making sure that it is taken care of when something happens. And something will happen, whether it's hail damage, whether it's your rear end somebody on the highway. Make sure you've got the proper coverage and somebody who will answer when you call them. So give Tracy a call today. Have her explain to you the free non-committal quote. She'll walk you through everything. If you decide to go with her and her team, they'll even cancel your insurance agent that you have right now. 314-328-4260. Just tell Tracy that Alex Ferrario sent you, and you'll find out why Tracy Bibb is truly the best. 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb.
And Pham sends one deep into left field, and that one's gonna fly. Tommy Pham, welcome back to the lineup. That ball's hit well into left field. That one is way back there, and Gurriel goes deep. Back-to-back home runs for the Diamondbacks.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, that's what it sounded like last night on Turner Sports as Aaron Nola gives up multiple home runs in that game last night. Goes just 4 1/3 for the Phillies, ends up giving up 4 earned runs. And Alex, the real problem for him last night was the home runs. And that's been the problem for Aaron Nola this year. The only pitchers in Major League Baseball, qualified starters, that gave up a bigger home run rate this year than Aaron Nola, Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito, Jordan Lyles, J.P. Sears, and Patrick Corbin. Those were the only 5. Here's the thing, though. Some of that's because of the ballpark that he plays in. Philadelphia is a very homer-friendly ballpark. Alex, he ended up giving up this season 34 home runs with the Philadelphia Phillies during the regular season. That's a lot. How many would he have given up if it was traveling all the same distance, all of that stuff, if he was playing all of his home games here in St. Louis, in your mind?
18.
I'm saying 28.
34 in Philadelphia would have been 25 here in St. Louis. Completely changes the outlook for his season, to say the least. Reason why I bring this up, that was the downside of going out and signing Aaron Nola to a massive contract. He has a bit of a home run problem. I don't think it's quite as big of a problem if he's coming here to St. Louis. And even with that issue, man, so far in his postseason, he has a 2.3 ERA. Sign me up for that every day of the week.
Yeah, I get that last night wasn't a gem by Aaron Nola, but if you're going to tell me that I get all the way to a championship series and in his second start in that championship series, he's going to give up 4 earned runs through 4 1/3, I'm all aboard that train, because that means the first CS, I'm going to get Aaron Nola at his best, and then to get to the CS, he's going to be dominant in the DS. So, like, I'm fine with that being the worst of the worst. If Nola did that for 3 straight starts, I'd be a lot more concerned and saying, I don't know if you can sign this guy. But we're talking about October 23rd, and he just had a falter.
He does have some fastball issues. That's what got hit hard last night, and this season that was his problem.
You know?
His fastball doesn't have a ton of velocity behind it. It plays pretty well off of his curveball. He's good at the tunneling, which I'm sure you guys have heard John Smoltz talk about during this postseason. Not really. He doesn't do that, but some of the other good analysts do.
Felt like a shot.
His four-seam fastball this year, opposing hitters had a .500 slugging percentage against it. It's not what you want. And if that doesn't get corrected, it is something that is a bit of a concern for me long term, because if you can't throw your fastball, as we saw this year with Adam Wainwright, now all of your secondary stuff just becomes what they're sitting on, and they're just waiting for that curveball. That's been a really good pitch for him, even this year in a quote-unquote down season. They're waiting for that, and now they're going to hit it pretty hard. So it is something that does concern me a bit, but I mean, the benefits far outweigh any of the potential concerns with Aaron Nola. Alex, Tyler Kepner is one of the best writers in the country in my mind that covers baseball. He writes for the New York Times, or previously wrote for the Times. Now he's over at The Athletic. He was on the best podcast in baseball on Friday, talking with Derek Gould about Nola, the Phillies, how they constructed a team that has had so much success in the postseason over the past few years. A lot of that conversation came back to Aaron Nola. Here's what Tyler Kepner had to say about Nola and whether or not he can be a legitimate #1 starter if he were to be signed here in St. Louis to a big money contract.
Well, he's not quite a #1. I mean, I think he's been a little inconsistent year to year, and within those years. But what he does really well is he takes the ball all the time. I think he's the most starts in baseball since 2018 or 17. Yeah. Generally has a pretty low whip and a lot of strikeouts. So, teams can really work with that, and teams like that. You start to figure, well, maybe, you give up a few home runs at inopportune times, but I think there's a lot there to like.
I think so too. He would still be my #1 target. Last night changed nothing for me, man. Nothing. It's one start. It didn't go his way. He gave up a couple of home runs, but otherwise this postseason, in 23 innings, he's given up 6 earned runs. And most of those came off of a couple of home runs last night. Like, I just am not all that worried about Aaron Nola. I think what we've seen over the long haul, this is the guy that should still be the #1 target for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I would go after this guy mostly because he proved everything that people were skeptical about in the start of this postseason. One start doesn't change what he did to get to this point in terms of looking like a legit shutdown, top of the rotation pitcher that BT has talked about in the fast lane of other teams saying, man, I got to go up against this guy. That's the start of a good offseason. I still believe you need something else. I still believe you'd probably like to find something that's got a lot more swing and miss than what Aaron Nola provides. But I'm adding this as my primary target because not only did I struggle with swing and miss last year, I struggled from quality innings and quality starts. And I know Nola's going to give me at least 25 of those next year.
So if you ended up going the Aaron Nola route, there are some that will still say you want to get a #1 because Zach Wheeler is the #1 starter for the Phillies, right? And over the last 2 years, Zach Wheeler has a 3.6 ERA. Over the last couple of years, he's been a guy that has like a 3.2 ERA. He's been amazing. Wheeler wasn't this guy, though, when they signed him in Philadelphia. And this is something else that Tyler Kepner talked about on that podcast, the best podcast in baseball. He mentioned how the Phillies bet big on the upside of Wheeler, and he thinks that's something the Cardinals should take as a lesson.
That's a big key is you've got to be able to identify guys who have something more, and whether that's a analytics thing or scouting thing, or that's critical, especially for a team like the Cardinals, because you're not going to go out and buy your whole rotation. You're not going to spend in free agency the way the Phillies do or some other teams. Got to be able to identify those diamonds in the rough.
I don't think these guys qualify as quote-unquote diamonds in the rough, but I don't think Zach Wheeler really did either. Zach Wheeler, prior to coming over to Philadelphia and signing that 5-year deal worth $125 million, had a 3.6 ERA, threw 377 innings, and it took 60 starts in the previous 2 seasons. Zach Wheeler was awesome, man. He had a 3.3 FIP. He was getting a little bit unlucky with some of his results, but overall was like a really solid #2 starter for the New York Mets in that stretch. The Phillies just bet that he was going to stay healthy. They knew that he could throw 96, 97 miles an hour. He's got crazy strikeout stuff. If this guy stays healthy, he's going to be a potential ace long term. So who are those guys that the Cardinals could target? Alex, I think there are 2 in particular that immediately jump off the page, and both, unfortunately, are not guys that you can sign via free agency. They're guys you would have to trade for. One is Tyler Glasnow. There's a piece yesterday in the Tampa Bay Times that said, hey, the Rays are probably going to have to trade Tyler Glasnow this offseason. They're going to have to cut payroll somewhere. Glasnow is about to make $25 million. This is the exact kind of move that the Rays typically make. The beat writer said the expectation for him going into the offseason, Glasnow is going to be dealt somewhere. Tyler Glasnow over the last 2 years has a strikeout rate of 12 Ks per 9. He's awesome. He unfortunately just can't stay healthy. He's never thrown more than 120 innings in any individual season in his career. So that's one guy that I would throw into this list. The other guy that I would throw into the list is the one that we've talked a lot about, and that's Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease, every underlying metric looks exactly like Zach Wheeler prior to him getting to Philadelphia. He just plays on a crap team in a crap ballpark with terrible circumstances. Last year, he was amazing. This year, everything went to crap for him. So I think those are the two for me that if you're looking for your Zach Wheeler and you want to add it on top of what you're getting with Aaron Nola so you can have what Philadelphia does right now, a legit number one and an unbelievable number two, I think those are the two guys that you should be targeting. It's either Dylan Cease, going to take a lot, or Tyler Glasnow because of the money, because only 1 year of control, probably have to give up less for him.
I love the Tyler Glasnow idea. The problem is you have to also make another move to plan on him not being available majority of that season. And that's the part that concerns me about the Cardinals, because that third move, if you're trading this and you're signing Aaron Nola, is going to be something very low level. And that screams when Glasnow gets injured, Michaelis moves up to your number 2, and we're trying to force a Steven Matz into your number 3. So the Dylan Cease or T-Bone, I know, brought up Lucas Giolito in the office. Those are the other two options. The problem is the cost. Now, you could probably get Giolito. He's a free agent, right?
Yeah.
You're signing him for cheap, but, I mean, you're taking a massive risk.
$12 million probably is what those kinds of guys typically get.
The problem with Dylan Cease is we're still talking a significant trade that is going to impact your offense. And I've been the one that said, like, hey, I'm good with it if you know what you're getting. But the whole issue with this conversation is the Cardinals have very little success in terms of identifying those diamonds in the rough.
How would you feel about an offseason, T-Bone? What's your thoughts on this as well? That included Tyler Glasnow, Aaron Nola, and like Edward Cabrera or Brian Wu, one of those back-end young starters with some upside still potentially there for you.
My assumption is you've probably given up too much. And what I mean by that is, like, you probably got to give up somebody that's decent of cost control to get the Cabrera or get the Wu. You probably don't have to give up a ton for Glasnow. But I think, like, if those are the three pitchers you get, depending on what I know went the other way, I would say that's probably a good start to your offseason. To Alex's point, though, like, if you're going to go get a Glasnow, because we've talked about this rotation and what you're going to do, I think Thompson's best suited to be your 6. So you sign somebody or you trade, like in this scenario, for Brian Wu. I think you have to tender Hudson a contract then, because then he's viewed as your 7. And the reason I say that is because I think you have to plan on Glasnow missing probably 10 to 15 starts. Got to plan on Matz missing 10 to 15 starts. And that's where that depth really comes into the focus point for the Cardinals of, okay, so how do we fill that? Does Zach Thompson then slide up and take some starts? And then you got Hudson that slides up and takes some starts. What do we really believe in McGreevy? You never saw him at the major league level. Be a lot to say, like, hey, let's plan on McGreevy being a part of this. Same with Graceffo. Or maybe they're going back in one of those deals. Like, I think if you're going after Glasnow, you have to tender Dakota Hudson a contract.
And there's the other problem, too, is you're planning on Glasnow not being available. I'm going into next season planning on Steven Matz to miss a quarter of the season. And now that's 2 guys that I'm forcing Miles Michaelis, Zach Thompson, and Dakota Hudson into roles that I'm not sure I feel most comfortable with, and you got to plan the other way.
They got to find a way to get to 162 starts next year. That's the goal, right? You start with the big number, and then you work your way backwards. I think you can expect 30 out of Michaelis. I think you can expect 30 out of Nola. So now we're, let's say, down to 100. 100 starts that you have to be able to fill after you have those guys as a part of your rotation. I think you can count on 15 from Steven Matz. I think that's what you should be expecting going into the season. I think you could count on like 15 from Thompson. Now you're at 30, so you've got 70 starts that remain. If you trade for Tyler Glasnow, I think you're talking about 20 starts from him. Now you're down to 50 starts. And the question is, okay, we have now named 5 different guys that are going to start for you, and I've still got 50 starts remaining for
and I don't know if you're getting 10 starts each.
Can a guy like TK Roby make that next step? Can somebody like Gordon Graceffo take that next step? Can Michael McGreevy take that next step? Who are the other guys that you can trust to give you those starts if you end up needing them to? That's really the question for the Cardinals that they would have to then answer. And we've also not talked yet about Brian Wu or Edward Cabrera, who could potentially give you 20 of those. I think this is something that could end up working for him. Money-wise, I think it would work. Talent-wise, giving it away, it requires less of you than if you were to go up and get a Dylan Cease, for example. It is risky, though, because Tyler Glasnow is a guy that you might get 20 starts out of him, you might get 5. And if you get the 5 starts out of him, do you have the depth to be able to make up for it? I don't know. That's something that the Cardinals would have to decide. Coming up next, we'll talk to Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Time to go out to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by Jeremy Rutherford. He's the Blues insider for The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at JP Rutherford. He had a great piece earlier today that we'll get to here in just a little bit on Doug Armstrong, who's going to be a part of his 1,000th game tonight as a manager in the NHL. JR, we appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
Good, BK. Alex, Tanner, how you guys doing?
Doing really well. So, Jared, let's start with the newsy side of things, then we'll kind of get to the analysis here in just a little bit. It sounds like it's going to be Binnington in net. We all kind of knew that was going to happen, but it does sound like there's a chance that we are going to end up seeing Pavel Buchnevich in this game tonight. Do you think that he will go back with that top line, or do you think they're going to stick with Brandon Saad with Thomas and Kyrou if Buch is able to play?
Yeah, first on Buchnevich, I saw him in the locker room yesterday after practice and asked him to chat for a moment, and he said he didn't know if he was going to play, so he kind of wanted to wait on that. But it looks like today he did skate at the morning skate in Winnipeg, and Matt DeFranks, who's with the Post-Dispatch, is there and said that Craig Berube just called him a game-time decision, so we'll see. In terms of him being ready to play, guys, I watched that contact, quote-unquote, contact yesterday that happened with Buchnevich, and, I mean, it was like me, you, and Alex going on a pub crawl and just kind of goofing around with each other and kind of leaning into each other as you walk into the next bar, and there wasn't a lot of contact yesterday. So, you know, I realize it's an upper body injury, kind of like a shoulder, collarbone type thing, and we'll see if he can make it through if he is able to play. As far as what line do they put him on, I think Craig Berube's got no choice but to put him on the second line. They've got to keep that line together with Brandon Saad, Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, not necessarily because they're producing in great number, but because I think there's some chemistry there. I think Saad looks electric. He looked great in that Pittsburgh game. And I think also a lot of people worried about the scoring going into the season. Was it spread out enough? Could you put Buchnevich on that second line? I think tonight maybe he gets that chance with Schenn and Kapanen, and we'll see what happens from there.
Jared, does that say more about the chemistry that Berube is searching for with Thomas and Kyrou if Saad looks good in one game and they stick there? Or does that say more about how they want that secondary scoring, and if one line is clicking so well, they can put Buch down and get more offense?
Probably a little bit of both, Alex. You know, good question. I think what happens in hockey, it seems like every year is you go into a season with one idea and you never know what the reasoning is going to be that kind of changes things. And I think, you know, with the injury to Buchnevich, obviously that changed what the Blues had to do, and they put Saad up there. And, you know, Saad on his best nights when he's skating hard and driving to the net, he can have that type of game. Maybe not 5 or 6 grade A scoring chances like he had the other night, but I think that also provides some stability for Kyrou and Thomas. Not that Buchnevich can't provide it, but I think Saad has shown us in the past couple games that he can do that. But, you know, secondarily, I think your other point is valid, is it does provide some potential secondary scoring, which the Blues have not been getting. It's been, with the exception of that Pittsburgh game, a pretty glaring area.
This decision also has a trickle-down effect to the power play unit. It looked yesterday as if Brandon Saad was going to be on that top unit, and I would assume this means that when Buch comes back, he'll be a part of the second group. JR, what have you seen from the power play over the last couple of games? More chances, still no goals. Is it starting to come around in your mind?
Yeah, I think so. You know, sometimes you regret a tweet a little bit. I think the other night, that goal by Malkin, you just kind of slump your shoulders if you're a Blues fan and say, how much more, you know, can the power play sink? And I think if you kind of step back big picture, that was a productive power play. You know, I said it was kind of rock bottom when Malkin scores there, but you know, they did have some chances, and I think if the power play is as bad as it's been and you're starting to get scoring chances, that's probably a positive. It just, I think, watching that game to see Malkin come out of the box and score on a situation where the Blues kind of flubbed the puck was tough to see. But I think what we're seeing, BK, a little bit more is, some urgency. I think some deliberate plays. I think some passing, some aggressiveness. But for me, it's still a little bit too much on the outside. I mean, it can look swell and great, and you're moving the puck and you're zipping passes from down low up high, you know, D to D. I just don't think that there's enough going to the net right now, and I think this power play isn't going to be successful till we see that.
Do they consider getting Perunovich back in the lineup? It doesn't sound like tonight, but at some point this upcoming week.
Yeah, it doesn't look like tonight. I think at some point they've got to get him in there. You know, just for the sake of he's got to play some games. I know they're, you know, more concerned right now with liking who they like in that defensive rotation. And I asked Craig Berube that specific question a couple days ago, and he said, look, right now Scandella and Tucker are our guys. He felt that Scandella's best game, I think, was just a couple games ago. And also he likes where Tucker's at, and he likes that physicality that Tucker brings. You know, I think a lot of us speculated, Alex, maybe can you put Perunovich in there, put him in the power play, give it some sort of life. It looks like for now that they're not going to get Prnovich in there until they're completely satisfied with where his defensive game is at. But, it's the old catch-22. How can he get better at it unless he gets in some game action?
Jeremy Rutherford is our guest for just another couple of minutes here on 101 ESPN. You can find his work over at The Athletic. And if you do so, you'll find his piece from earlier today on Doug Armstrong, who is going to eclipse 1,000 games in the Blues general manager chair. JR, what did you learn when talking to Army, talking to other people around the league about Army, in your conversations about what he's meant to this organization in his 1,000 games here in St. Louis?
Yeah, because I think that we all know that the respect level around the league is there. But to me, it's pretty incredible that, it doesn't seem like yesterday he got hired, but it doesn't seem like that long ago. And now we're talking the longest tenured general manager in the hockey league, in the National Hockey League. And I know that it's kind of fleeting. Guys come and go. You look at the stats that I had in the story. Since Doug Armstrong came aboard in 2010, there's teams around the league that have had 5 different general managers, Vancouver, Toronto, a couple others, many others that had 4 general managers in that span. So I think that's first and foremost. But what also kind of caught my attention talking to Doug Armstrong for about 15 minutes before that Pittsburgh game the other night is just the helpfulness that GMs are and provide for each other. They're competitive, yes, and they want to win, but this is a fraternity. And Doug said that when you go into those meetings early on, when you're a younger general manager, it's kind of intimidating. And now that he's more of an elder statesman, he's there to help some of those younger guys and be there for them if need be. And he also did give me a little nugget. He said that, if a GM around the league gets fired, I said, do you call him, Doug, and kind of wish him well? And he said, yeah, but I learned something several years ago. Call him twice. Call him, tell him, hey, feel for you, bud. You did a great job. Sorry to see the news. And then 7 or 10 days later, when the phone calls stop coming for that person, give him another buzz and kind of be there and be supportive. So he knows the drill. He was fired in Dallas. He went through it. And so I think to hear Doug say that he tries to do that as much as he can was pretty supportive of that fraternity.
Jared, do you think that his long-term stay with the Blues and the respect that he has around the league, does that benefit him when you're trying to go through this quick retool that he's discussed?
Yeah, I think so. I think we always joke that when he calls you and he's trying to make a trade, hang up because he's won more trades than he's lost for sure. But I think that, in doing several pieces, including a big package on Doug Armstrong this past summer, the one thing that I get from talking to other general managers and agents also is that everything's black and white with Doug. So if he's calling you and he wants to try to improve his team, he's also thinking about why it would make sense for you too, the other general manager. And so I think you ask, does it benefit the Blues to have that kind of experience with Doug? I think it does because, he can kind of do his homework, do his due diligence, have his staff look at guys, identify where he wants to go and who he wants to get and who's going to help him improve it, and then make those phone calls. And they're quick phone calls. This is what I see. I think it helps you. I think it helps me. Do you want to do this? And if it doesn't match up, then you move on. But, there's not a lot of beating around the bush with him from the people I talk to, straight to the point. And I think that's helped him in his career.
JR, appreciate the time as always, man. People can go find that story that you had. There's some great nuggets in there on Doug Armstrong over at The Athletic. You can also find the link if you'd prefer on Twitter at JP Rutherford. Appreciate the time as always. Great work on that story. We'll talk with you again next week, my friend.
Thanks, boys. Thanks.
You got it. This is Jeremy Rutherford, Blues insider for The Athletic, joining us as he does each and every Tuesday here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, when you think about what it meant for Doug Armstrong to get to this 1,000 games in the Blues GM chair here in St. Louis, I think the biggest thing that I took away from JR's piece is what he said there at the end with, man, can you believe that he is the longest tenured general manager in the league now? Like, he has in this piece the number of teams and how many general managers they have had since 2010. Just to pull out a few, and these are some successful organizations in this stretch. The Toronto Maple Leafs have had 5 general managers since 2010. The Calgary Flames, 5. Philadelphia, 4. The New York Rangers, 3. The Minnesota Wild, 3. Colorado Avalanche, 3. Tampa Bay Lightning have had multiple. Vegas, who's been around for like 5 years, have had multiple general managers. Meanwhile, with the Blues, there's been one guy that's been in charge this entire time. That's remarkable stability here.
Well, and it's not just one guy in charge. It's one guy in charge who has maintained like a .658 winning percentage in the regular season, where some of these guys, like, yeah, you've gone through maybe 2 of them. Like, I know the one he referenced was David Poile, who just stepped down with Nashville, but look at the winning percentage that he had as a general manager compared to the winning percentage that Doug Armstrong has had as a general manager. So it's one thing to stay in the same spot. It's another thing to stay in the same spot and always be competitive. And I think that's why Blues fans are so infuriated with kind of where they're at right now, because this retool, it's not common for this Blues team. But look, when you got this guy in charge, and that's why I asked JR that question, like, when you got to respect the general manager around National Hockey League, when you make a call, teams are answering no matter what. And then you just have to wait to find out if you can pull the trigger on that trade. But yeah, the success that he has had does not go unnoticed, and that's why I feel like the Blues are in a really good position to be moving forward.
Blues back in action tonight. Blues versus Jets. Pregame starting at 6:45 right here on your home for the Blues 101 ESPN. By the way, a little bit of news in Major League Baseball. It has been announced, according to The Athletic, the Giants are expected to announce Bob Melvin as their next manager. This has been something that has been long speculated and, I mean, close to reported at this point. Bob Melvin going to be the next manager of the Giants. Previously, of course, with the Oakland Athletics, so he is from that area or familiar with the area. Spent the last couple of years with the San Diego Padres. That did not go according to plan for anybody involved. This opens up the opportunity for Mike Schultz to be able to get that job in San Diego. It's going to be interesting, man. The Giants, I think this is a really good hire for them. I've said all along, I think Bob Melvin is a great manager. And if he can't have success out in San Diego, it makes me wonder if anybody really can. I guess maybe Mike Schultz is the guy, but I don't know, man. That's a tough job.
Well,
it's a really tough job.
It's not your job to figure out if he can handle it or not. And second of all, I'm really looking forward to
that was really well done.
I'm really looking forward to the Padres-Cardinals series when Schultz is the manager, because I would like to request you to go into their press conference following the game.
I will.
Yeah, we do have access to the visitor clubhouse.
Yeah,
you do, specifically.
Well, yeah.
I know that it's typically in like the little office of the manager. It's not like an actual press conference setting. So, man,
I'll go say hi.
What uncomfortable moment would it be with BK locked in a room with Mike Schultz?
He'd go.
I wish we could do it on Zoom just for good old time's sake.
Yeah, no, he'll mute you. Make sure you raise your hand before you ask the question.
Yeah, late.
Anybody else got anything? Brandon? Yeah, we'll see.
What jerk is about to end the Zoom and then he just asks one question like that? Unbelievable.
Fair question. It did not go well. Apparently somebody did that the other day. What was the interview, or somebody at the very end had another question?
It happened at Berubic's presser.
That's what it was.
Yeah. But he didn't get upset.
Okay. Wow, Berubi never gets upset.
Yeah.
Probably because the question was actually well thought.
It was.
Fair.
Man, why did you decide to go with that pitcher?
Luis Garcia.
Hey, he's in San Diego.
He is a Padre. Maybe he was a Schultz guy.
Apparently. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer. But next, speaking of managers, Yadier Molina. Sure sounds like he's going to be on the bench for the Cardinals next year. What's the upside of this? And can we talk about the downside? Is that allowed? We'll do it next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK, and I've got some exciting news for all the men in the audience right now. Victory Men's Health has launched a new telehealth site. It's called Victory RX. You can go there at victoryrx.com. Men, you can get your prescribed that ED medication that you've been looking for. The process is going to be very simple. You go to the site, you do your entire consults all via text. They have treated thousands of men, and there are standalone locations around the area And now, regardless of where you're listening from right now, you'll have easier access to their #1 selling ED medication. This is going to come in the form of a chewable tablet, which is important because that means that it's going to have a faster uptake. It works quickly for you, and you don't have to worry about the food or the drink affecting any of the effectiveness for this medication. Not with the chewable tablet, not with VictoryRx.com. It's going to be assured for you that the dosage works correctly the first time around, so be sure to go there, VictoryRx.com. The active ingredients include both Viagra and Cialis. VictoryRx.com, and play hard.
Terry Henderson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they take on the Winnipeg Jets. We've got pregame coverage starting tonight at 6:45 with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for puck drop at 7:45. And it looks like Jordan Bennington will be in between the pipes for the Blues, and Pavel Buchnevich will be a game-time decision. And last night, the Texas Rangers beat the Astros 11-4 to win Game 7 of the ALCS as they advance to the World Series. And tonight is Game 7 in the NLCS as the D-backs and Phillies will start at 7:07. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff on your road shot 24/7 at Londoff.com, Autoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
Think it's going to happen. That's my personal opinion. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. What I mean is I think Yadier Molina is going to be the next bench coach here in St. Louis.
Oh, I could have told you that one was for sure happening.
So he was interviewed yesterday with an outlet down in Puerto Rico. And this has been translated from Spanish to English. So some of that, I want to make that clear because some of it can potentially be lost in translation a bit. But I think the theme pretty much comes through in this conversation. Yadier Molina was asked about his future as a coach in Major League Baseball. Here's what he had to say, Alex. Quote, "There is something cooking. I've had various offers in the United States over the last year with both Miami and in St. Louis. This year I have offers as well. I think there's something cooking with St. Louis. There is a 90% chance that it happens. There are decisions that someone must make in their future. I see myself managing, coaching in the United States for a few years. I like it. I'm a guy that's fascinated with baseball. I'm passionate about it. To have an opportunity like that, I cannot pass it up." He was then asked about coaching specifically with the Cardinals. He said, and I quote, "St. Louis has given me the opportunity. It's my second home. There's always a good relationship and communication with them. They are trying to guide me to that way, to the matter of being a coach. They have their staff who have done a good job with this team. It would be an opportunity that would be hard to say no to. I love St. Louis. I love baseball, and St. Louis has the best baseball in the world. I would like to be in St. Louis," end quote. There's not a whole lot to be left for translation there. Yadier Molina is essentially saying, yeah, we got to work out some of the details, and the playoffs are still taking place right now, so they can't announce anything.
But hey, see you soon.
Yeah. My guess is, again, purely a guess, speculation by me, I would bet sometime tomorrow we probably have some kind of an announcement. Today is the last day of the CS. Tomorrow is an off day for everything. There is nothing going on with the World Series yet. So it is a day that Major League Baseball typically says, hey, if you've got anything to announce it tomorrow. I think the Giants are going to announce tomorrow that Bob Melvin is going to be their next manager. I wouldn't be surprised if the Padres announced at the same time that Mike Schilt is going to be their next manager.
Dueling press conference.
And I think the Cardinals will also announce that Yadier Molina is going to be their next bench coach. How do you feel about that, Alex?
I'm impartial. Like, I don't know how to feel because the one side of it, I look at this and say, this is a great move by the Cardinals. You're bringing in somebody who has respect among everybody in that clubhouse, veterans, rookies. So when he speaks, they're going to listen. And this was kind of the role he had that last season before he retired. And I think that's a benefit for a team that really is stuck in between right now of figuring out who they are. Now you can start to have a little bit more of an identity with a guy who has been there, done that. On the flip side of this, I hope Ali understands what is at stake. And what I mean by that is if you're the Cardinals and you're bringing Yadier Molina in as a bench coach, there's only one direction that this goes. And it's Yadier Molina as the manager of the Cardinals at some point. I don't know if it's going to be in 1 year. I don't know if it's going to be in 2 years or 5 years. But it's going to go that direction because if you're the Cardinals, you cannot, let me rephrase that. If you're Bill DeWitt, you cannot fathom the idea of Yadier Molina being the manager on another team and having success.
So first of all, I really don't know how to. I'm excited for the hire because I want to see him work with Contreras. I mean, like this, as much as he's being brought in probably as the bench coach, his number one job is to get Contreras game planning better, framing better, blocking better, and I can't think of a better guy to name to come in and work with Wilson Contreras on that than arguably one of the best defensive catchers in baseball's history in Yadier Molina. So that part I'm excited about. I am curious to know what this looks like, though, and we'll probably never know what this looks like, but I am curious to know, because to your point on bringing him in, the fan base is going to want him to take Oliver Marmol's job, and that's what is so fascinating about this hire for me is, kudos to Oli Marmol for doing what is necessary to bring in the proper leadership. I mean, he essentially did this with Schumacher.
Yep.
I mean,
tried to do it last year with Matt Holliday.
I know he had a 3-year deal when he was signed on as manager. Our fan base wanted a guy with experience. Like the fan base wanted someone that had experience. That's why they were so upset.
Hire Yadier Molina as the manager. That's so much experience.
Well, he's been a manager for his entire career.
Experience in major leagues.
I'm with you. I'm sorry. This isn't
Seriously,
about you.
Check your damn tone, man.
The same people that text in about how the Cardinals need to hire like Bruce Bochy are now like, oh, Yadi should be the man.
Well, he doesn't like that damn analytics.
I just don't understand. Sorry.
That will
Go
be
ahead.
the thing with him.
He goes good.
To your point, though, when you mentioned the analytics there, I am fascinated to know what he works with, not just with Oliver Marmol, but with the pitching coach and Dusty Blake. Because when I think of Yadier Molina, not only do I think of a great defensive catcher, I think of a guy that clearly this pitching staff missed last year, a guy that could work with guys that was essentially like another pitching coach. But I also think of him as kind of, and maybe I shouldn't, and this is maybe my own fault, I think of him as almost kind of old school, not looking at the numbers. And when I think of Dusty, I think more of not so much as the role as a in-game adjuster when as a pitching coach, but as the guy that is able to look at pitch shaping and what goes on behind the scenes that's not in-game adjustments. And that is one thing that I'll be interested to see how those two kind of work together. It is a fascinating hire by the St. Louis Cardinals, and you don't move on from that era of baseball. Remember when we talked about with Adam Wainwright's retirement of now this clubhouse takes a new shape, can form a new identity, and the players can still do that, but they never have moved on from the Yadier Molina, Albert Pujols, Adam Wainwright era. It just continues, but with someone as a coach rather than as a player.
I find that to be kind of interesting, too. From the 314, I find this to be a good text. Guys, Ollie Marmol is in a no-win situation. If he starts winning next season with Yadier Molina as his bench coach, people are just going to say, well, of course he won. Yadier Molina was back. If he continues losing, then the fan base will say, bad spot. Now we want Yadier Molina to take over because clearly Ollie Marmol can't get the job done.
Yep.
That's correct.
Yep.
There's a lot of truth to that. And this is why I find it to be a compelling situation. Man, those guys have to be aligned. They have to be aligned. And I think that they will be. But if there is infighting, as there clearly has been in San Diego, and you hear about this with other organizations, it's very rarely the case here in St. Louis where you hear that there is stuff that is not organizationally aligned. It was the case with Mike Schilt. Clearly. That's why he was fired. But for the most part, you see guys that are going, it's kumbaya, right? They all are trying to push towards the same direction. Ollie had that with Skip Schumacher. Those two were super tight. If you heard our conversation that we did with Skip Schumacher earlier this year, I think you can feel that. When he's talking about Ollie Marmol, he genuinely believes in him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come here. He believed that Ollie and this organization was the best thing for him to be able to get the job that he now has. He wanted to be a manager. He thought he could get that based on what he was able to do here. You hear any of his other interviews that he's done, he talks about, hey, the way that things are done in St. Louis, that's how I want to do things down in Miami. I don't want to take what I did in San Diego. I want to use my experience in St. Louis. Is that going to be the case with Yadi and with Ollie? I genuinely don't know. And I also wonder, this is just something that I'm thinking out loud because I do think that we talk a lot about the positives, and there are a lot of them about Yadier Molina taking over as the bench coach. He's going to be helpful for your pitching staff. There's no doubt about that. I think he's going to be a great voice to have next to Ollie Marmol, where it's just in-game decision-making. There's not a dude that I trust more with that stuff than Yadier Molina, really, in the last 20 years of Major League Baseball. That guy's a baseball savant in every sense of the word. Is he ready for this kind of time commitment? Because it's a lot. Somebody on the text line said, guys, I'm not sure that he's going to want to be a manager because the time commitment might be better for him as a bench coach. Guys, the time commitment is not all that dissimilar. As a bench coach, you're in charge of spring training.
The only difference is you just don't speak to the media.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's what Ollie has told us at the ballpark before.
100%. So as a bench coach, there's a ton of travel. You're going to be on the road all the time. Baseball season starts basically in February. It ends hopefully late October for you. You get like 3 months off all year long, and then you're right back at it. And even when you're off, man, you're still grinding. You got other stuff that you're doing. You're sending out workouts to guys. You're getting clips from them. You're giving them feedback. Like, this thing never ends. We saw in his last year in St. Louis that it didn't really feel like he was fully committed to playing baseball that year. Now, some of that was the injuries. I'm not trying to take that away from him. The dude is tough as nails. But I think it was fair to question, like, man, does he want to do this anymore? Does he want to be a part of the time commitment that is Major League Baseball's 162-game season? I don't blame him if he's not. That ended up being the determining factor for Matt Holliday last year. I don't blame anybody who doesn't want to be a part of that grind. But is he really ready for that right now? That is a question that I think remains open-ended, and I don't think we can get that answer until we're actually in it next year. And even then, I don't know that we'll have the answer until after the season and when we find out whether or not he's coming back the following season. So that is something that I will be looking forward to, is finding out, okay, is he really ready for this now, at this point in his life, this quickly after he decided to retire from Major League Baseball? I don't know how you can know.
Yeah, tinfoil for you. That last season for Yadier Molina, I wonder if Yadi even wanted to be back. I wonder if that was more of a Cardinals wanting him back than Yadi wanting to be back for what they were chasing. But distance makes the heart grow fonder, and when you get him away from baseball, and I think he was just in Puerto Rico pretty much this past season, did not come back to the United States.
Was Wayno's send-off.
And I really wonder if that's why he's so excited to get back into baseball. When you were away from it, when you've been involved with it for 20 plus years, and now you're back to it, that builds the excitement up. And somebody texted in and said, us acting as he's going to be the next manager is this lazy, pessimistic viewing. I don't view that as the case. If you're the Cardinals and Yadier Molina is coming back into this, one, you're trying to win now, and you know he's the best opportunity to do that in multiple areas, pitching and catching-wise. But you're the Cardinals, you also kind of understand what's in front of you with a Hall of Famer who could be in a position to lead this team.
I would add this. Ollie knows this.
Yeah.
Ollie knows what the talk is going to be.
You're not bringing him in unless you understand what the repercussions are.
He knows that the moment that he's hired everybody in St. Louis, not everybody, a lot of this fan base is going to want Yadi to be the manager instead of him. He knows that. He knows that a lot of people wanted Skip Schumacher to be the manager over him. He probably knows that last year when he hired Matt Holliday, a lot of people were going to wait for Ollie to screw up so that way Matt Holliday could be the manager. Like, he's made 3 consecutive hires in this regard of a guy that's going to be more popular the moment that they put on that jersey than he is. And there's no way to get around that. This, though, is a little different. Hiring Matt Holliday, Matt Holliday is beloved in this community. Don't get me wrong. Hiring Skip Schumacher, beloved in this community. Hiring Yadier Molina, a future, I believe, first ballot Hall of Famer who is among the most respected baseball people to ever come through that organization, that takes on a different level of, in this fan base, appreciation, respect, and belief that that guy should have that job. So, I don't know, man. I think it's a really smart hire by Ollie Marmol. And I think that he knows what he's taking on here, but there is a lot of risk for him if this thing goes sideways at all. T-Bone?
I was going to say, too, and I was thinking out loud, if you're the Cardinals organization, do you, because this wouldn't be as much of a conversation if Oliver Marmol was not a lame duck manager. And what I mean by that is his deal, if he had another year on his deal, I'm not sure how much you're talking about. Well, Yadi comes in, and clearly he's the guy that's going to replace Oliver Marmol.
You'd be talking about it as just 2 years from now rather than 1.
I don't know that I agree with that.
I was going to say, I wonder if you have a conversation of adding a year or 2 to his deal. And I know fans don't want to hear that because he had a bad year. But that was, let's be honest, that was not a managerial thing. That was a front office issue of putting a terrible roster in front of him. I think it's just an interesting conversation because I think part of the reason, though, a lot of fans Skip was more popular than Oliver Marmol, it wasn't as much as hey, early on failure, he's out because he had a 3-year deal. He was in the beginning of a 3-year deal. And look, teams can change their mind quickly, as we've seen across sports. But I think it is something that is interesting. I think it has more fuel to the fire because he is Ollie is a free agent at the end of the year.
Yeah, at least as of right now. Somebody on the text line said, guys, this is a toothpaste scenario. You can't put it back in once you end up getting it out. I will place a bet that Yadi will be the manager in 2025. I won't. I think that this team really believes that Ollie Marmol is a good manager. And I think part of why they're willing to make this kind of a hire is because they view Ollie as a good enough leader that he's not going to lose as a clubhouse where there's going to be infighting on who they should actually listen to. I believe that. That being said, I don't think the fan base will. I can believe whatever I want to. I don't speak for the Cardinals fan base. Cardinals fans, I think at least a majority of them will feel a very different way than what some of us here on this show do or what anybody else that believes in Ollie does.
Unfortunately for Ollie, and I don't agree with this, but unfortunately for him, this is a lose-lose situation. This team wins, it's going to be because of Yadier Molina. And if this team loses, it's going to be because of Ollie Marmol, and Yadi needs to be the manager.
And in this way, it's a selfless hire. And what I mean by that is he is saying, okay, I understand. I'm going to get none of the credit if we end up making this hire, but I believe Yadier Molina makes our team better. And if you're Ollie Marmol, your job is to get the best people in place to help your organization win. And if that means that you get none of the credit for the winning, so be it, man. 20 years from now, if they win a World Series next year and it's because Yadier Molina is the bench coach, hey, guess who was the manager of the 2024 St. Louis Cardinals that won the World Series? It will forever be written in pen. That man was Oliver Marmol. It was not Yadier Molina. So whether we like it or not, he's viewing this as, I want to make the team better. And Yadier Molina makes the team better. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Mike Liut, former Blues goalie, newest member of the Blues Hall of Fame. We're going to talk to him about that induction, what it means to him, and what he's seeing from his client right now, and Jordan Binnington, who's playing really well so far for the Blues. Mike Liut next here on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Brandon Kiley and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. It is BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN, your home of the Blues. And last week, the Blues announced their next class of their Blues Hall of Fame, going in with last year's inaugural class. It was Pavel Demitra, it was Keith Tkachuk, and the man who is joining us right now on our 101 Celebrity Line, former goaltender for the St. Louis Blues, Mike Liut. Mike, it is great to catch up with you, sir. Congratulations on finding out that you're headed into the Blues Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Alex. It's quite an honor, of course. It's always an honor to be recognized. I'm glad I'm certainly honored, and I'm glad it happened. I'm certainly glad it happened, so it's not posthumously awarded. But the Blues have such a great franchise that I think this is long overdue for all the players that have played there and have had such an impact in the National Hockey League.
Mike, the night that you were announced along with Keith Tkachuk and Pavel Demitra, my dad, who grew up a Blues fan, watched him from 1967, he texted me and he said, one of my favorite Blues of all time. And he said those early 1980 seasons were dominant because of Fedorko, Sutter, and because of Mike Liut in between the pipes. That was his favorite era of hockey. And I would imagine, being the start of your NHL career, has to be one of your favorites as well.
Certainly. When I was drafted by St. Louis, and that's your team. That's always your team. We all know that very few start and finish with the same team, but there's something special. It's what you grow up, dreaming about. You're a hockey player. You want to play in the National Hockey League. The first step, it's not definitive, but the first step is getting drafted in most cases. And for me, it was St. Louis. And then when I graduated from Bowling Green, St. Louis just wasn't there. The Solomon family had folded the franchise, and so I signed in the WHA for that reason, probably likely only that reason. But as things do in life, they tend to work out, and it was a thrill to join the NHL, of course, and to play your first game and all of those, experiences, that go into your career, and particularly at the beginning.
We're talking to Mike Liut here on 101 ESPN. Mike, when you think about your career here in St. Louis, and I mean, you think about either the players that you played with, future Hall of Famers in that regard, some of the coaches that you played under here as well, with both Barclay Plager being at the top of the helm, or Red Berenson being here as well. What are some of your favorite memories from that time, whether it was on or off the ice? What are some of your favorite memories from your time here in St. Louis?
Well, 80-81 was a big year, but it was a big year for all of us. And we had, we got pretty close to the Sun. We finished second in the league. We lost the Islanders on a late goal late in the season. And, everybody that year seemed to have their best season, right? I mean, there was we would step on the ice and we just expected to win. And that was moving from the year before. We finished very strongly. And, and part of winning is losing, and you have to learn how to overcome that. You have to improve a little bit more. You bring in some people from outside, you grow organically. And, part of your great experiences are the things that aren't so good. And getting traded, I thought we were on the way back. We after 81, we kind of paled a little bit, and then to get traded was pretty tough, right? I mean, that was not something that you think is going to happen, and when it happens, it's difficult, but, it brings out the best in people. And, just prior to that, I ran into Red Berenson. He was at the University of Michigan at that point. And, he stopped by and sought me out. And, he said, hey, you're going to get traded and you got to get yourself back to where you were. And you're not there right now. And as athletes, you always think that you're playing better than you are sometimes. And that was something that he did, for whatever reason, he's in my best interests. And even after I got traded, we played St. Louis shortly after that. And Barclay held the bus up because he wanted to see me after the game. And, he grabbed me and he just said, he just went into this litany about, this is not a great situation, but you're playing for Emile Francis. He's going to make it better, and you got to make it better. And he's giving me this pep talk. And that's another thing that that you remember. I mean, there were just so many great people that come into your life, and those are two moments there where, I didn't realize that I was sliding out of St. Louis, and Red was there with that sort of, wake up, if you will. And then Barkley is right behind him with this, and you just had people. I mean, that's the community of hockey. They look out for each other, and those are the memories that you take to your grave.
We're talking with former Blues goaltender Mike Liut, who is going to be inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame in January alongside Keith Tkachuk and Pavel Demitra. Mike, you mentioned Barclay Plager, and of course he was your assistant coach. You never had the honor to play with Bobby or Barclay Plager, but with one being your assistant coach, and I'm assuming Bobby Plager was just always around when you played for the Blues, what was life like with the Plager brothers as a player in St. Louis?
I would have liked to have played with the Plager brothers, particularly when we went into Philadelphia. We could have used some of that. Barkley was really intense, right? Everything was intense about him, right? And I relate to that. And Bobby, was a man of a million stories. And my favorite for him is that we were playing Montreal in the Forum for the first time, and he came up to me and asked me if I was starting, and I said I was, and he said, this is what I do, and it's really worked for me when I play against Montreal, particularly in Montreal. He said, before I go on the ice, I repeat this, and he launches into our Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven. and I just said, yeah, that seems like that's about the only way it's going to turn out well, right? Hope and a prayer. But I mean, Bobby would just, that was Bob, right? He just, out of the blue, unsuspected, boom, there's his one-liner. So, yeah, they were, that's the lore of St. Louis. It's why, notwithstanding that I was inducted, I'm honored and proud to be inducted, whether I was or I wasn't. It's long overdue for the people that have played in St. Louis and had such an impact on the game. And I remember St. Louis, from when I was in college, and it was shortly after they had the original, they had started the franchise, and it was modeled after, the Toronto and Montreal, where people got dressed up. They went to the game. It was a big deal socially, and there's just a lot of class in that organization, and it was I think, is from the expansion teams, probably the model. And, it just had a lot of earmarks of Montreal with Scotty, with the players that they brought in, and so I think it's long overdue. I think it's great that they've done it, and there's a lot of other players that will come into the Blues Hall of Fame, and I think that really presents the franchise and its impact in the NHL.
To go full circle with you, Mike, of course, you played for the St. Louis Blues at the beginning of your career, and now your post-playing career, you're an agent, and some of your clients have played for or currently play for the St. Louis Blues. So you've been able to kind of see this full evolution of the St. Louis Blues all the way to winning the Stanley Cup and now where they're at today, which I would imagine is a pretty honorable thing for you.
It is. That was a lot of fun to watch them win. I think Octagon, between myself and my colleagues, I think we represented 7 members on that hockey team. Wow. So we were really engaged, through that run, and particularly, as the season was sliding into oblivion by Christmas. And then when Jordan, who's a client, got a chance to play, we'd been waiting a long time for that opportunity. And just to watch him, seize the moment, and then of course, nobody's predicting the Stanley Cup win, but they really played as a team. I mean, that is maybe as much of a team win in professional sports as there ever was, and there's so many great moments by everybody on that hockey team that turned that season into a championship tournament or season, and now we have Jordan is eventually, probably this year, going to become the all-time leader in wins for the Blues. So that's our next milestone for the Blues.
Mike Liut is our guest. Final question that I've got for Mike, former Blues goalie, now NHL agent. He is, as he said, representing Jordan Binnington. Mike, I did want to ask you a little bit about what we have seen from Binner so far this year, because it looks as comfortable as we've seen him in net probably since that Stanley Cup championship. And that's not to take away anything of what he did in the seasons that followed, but he looks tremendous thus far. Have you noticed a change in his game this year? And if so, what specifically are you seeing as an expert on the position from Jordan Binnington?
I agree with you. I was at the home opener, and I thought that was as solid a performance as he's played, and solid by just in the right spot, comfortable, calm, and not, letting the frantic pace of the game, escalate his game, right? I mean, that's the key to playing goal is, as the faster the game goes, the slower you have to react to it, which is not to say that your intensity level isn't there. It's just you can't get swept up in the emotion of the back and forth, because you're essentially, you're the last line of defense tracking a puck and looking for mistakes because that's when you're going to be needed. In terms of a difference, I would say that, when you have an impact on the team as a goaltender, the natural move is to try to do more and to try to be more of a leader. And many times that's just impossible because of the position. I always call it passive aggressive, right? You're going to be aggressive, but you got to wait for something to happen first. You're not a third line energy guy. You're not going to go out there and just, play with a great deal of emotion in a particular shift. Because you just can't go from, the high and back to equilibrium. So I think Jordan has kind of found his groove in terms of how he's going to be a leader on that team. And it's important for the goaltender to lead in his own way. But, you can't lose sight of, your job is to stop the puck. And, many times that's the only thing you can do, right? So the ebb and flow of the game, getting the guys revved up, that's just not the goaltender's role, right? It's too difficult with everything else. So playing within himself, I guess, would be a short way of saying it.
Well, Mike, we truly appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to hop on with us in St. Louis. I know so many Blues fans have texted in talking about how you were one of their favorite players growing up. So congratulations once again to you and your family for being inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame. And we look forward to seeing you around Enterprise Center real soon.
Yeah, okay, great, guys. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. There you go. That's Mike Liut headed into the Blues Hall of Fame. And I pulled this one up, BK, because I was curious when he said it. So Mike Liut holds the Blues record for most games played as a goaltender, 347. And he also holds the record for most wins among goaltender at 151. Two records that Jordan Binnington could surpass by the end of his career here in St. Louis.
Binner at 119 in terms of the wins right now, so he would need another 33 wins in order to break that record. Listen, man, I don't think that we're going to see that broken this year.
No. If it does, we're getting a Vezina trophy,
Mike
guys.
said he thinks later on this season we could see him break his... I don't know that I'm willing to go there. I think it's been amazing, the performance that we've seen thus far from Jordan Binnington, and that's true. Like, I genuinely believe this is the best we've seen Jordan Binnington perform. You could either argue since the Cup year or the year after. The year after, he was really good.
Yeah.
It just ended up getting shut down, unfortunately, due to the pandemic. But Jordan Binnington in 2020 was playing really good hockey. This year, he's been as good as we've seen since then. 32, 33 wins feels like a little bit of a long shot there. I did like what he said there, Alex. He's playing within himself.
Yep.
And you notice that he didn't specifically say it, but if you kind of read between the lines a little bit.
Which is what we do great here on BK and Ferrario.
Yeah. I think you can basically hear him saying, hey, he got a little bit over into some of the antics the last couple of seasons. And this year, he's just playing hockey. Mm-hmm. He's just going out there and saying, you know what, my job is stop the puck. I'm going to go out there and stop the puck. Yeah. And I respect that. It's about time. I think that's what he needed.
I do, too. And if you go back to when he won the Cup and then the year after when he was the All-Star, that was the Jordan Binnington, the calm, cool, and collected where you'd get one quote from him and that would be it. you got a little away from it, and I know people get so frustrated. I know our good buddy Greg Wyshynski, who's probably listening, hates the antics that Binnington provided, but what Mike Liut said is what Binnington was trying to accomplish. You're trying to be more than just a goaltender. You're trying to be a lightning rod for energy for a group that just wasn't finding it. Now you've gone back to what you need to, and you let the team in front of you do it, and that goes a long way with goaltenders in the NHL, and it's no coincidence that his agent is also a former goaltender who understands the position.
That was Mike Liut. If you missed any of our conversation with him, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. You can also find us on YouTube, where our studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team. Just search 101 ESPN STL. That's where you can go to find it. If you go over there, you can get involved in the chat or text us. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You give us the scenario, we'll tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it coming up next. You're on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Ted Drew's, the famous frozen custard off of Chippewa, where it has been a St. Louis tradition since 1929. My wife and I are already planning to get out there this weekend with our girls. It's the fall season, which means you go get those frozen custards. My personal favorite, the Oreo. Her personal favorite, the Cardinal Sin. But they've got plenty of flavors for you. You can pretty much make whatever you want. You in the Halloween mood? How about the Great Pumpkin? It's a slice of pumpkin pie mixed in vanilla frozen custard topped with whipped cream. You're going to have that and say, man, I need this for our Thanksgiving meals. Well, good news. You can buy Ted Drew's in the quarts, and you can take it home with you and keep it for the holidays. They've got so much more than that. They were voted the Best Ice Cream Shop Award in 2016. It's the custard that is fresh, fast, and fun. And now when you go out there off of Chippewa, you can walk across the parking lot and check out their gift shop, where you can shop Ted Drew's apparel. You can get kids or adult T-shirts, hats, drinkware, gift cards, the perfect gift for that special someone. So go check them out off of Chippewa. Find out why Ted Drew's frozen custard really is good guys and gals.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, bet it or forget it. This time tomorrow, we'll be talking about Yadier Molina being announced as the Cardinals' next bench coach.
Sure, bet it. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, you think the Cardinals would have some respect for Major League Baseball and wait until the World Series ends before they make a drop big nugget like that, but why not?
Screw that, man. The Giants are hiring Bob Melvin
Stealing the press conference from Mike Schilt. Once again, just stealing stuff from Mike Schilt. Yeah, I'm going to bet this one.
Oh, they should do it on the same day as Mike Schilt getting
Incredible.
San Diego's going to be like, no, we'll push it off because the Cardinals are going to announce this. We want to make sure Schilt is by himself. And then Mo will be like, yeah, we're going to have the press conference today, but we're going to push it off also.
What are you waiting for? Mike Schilt's
Mike Schilt's press conference. Same time. BK needs to be in attendance.
Oh, yeah, I'm betting it.
Yeah, bet it as well.
Yeah.
I think it's going to get done. I think the only holdup potentially would be like if there's some I's to dot, T's to cross in terms of contractually what they're able to get done. It's possible he hasn't come to America. He was on Instagram Live earlier today from a baseball stadium down in Puerto Rico.
From Zoom.
Yeah, come on.
So I don't think he is coming here to sign
That would be
anything.
the most Yachty thing ever, announcing him as the bench coach, and he's via Zoom from Puerto Rico.
That would certainly be something. I would imagine that's probably something that gets done very, very soon. I also think, I kind of poo-pooed this when you said this, Alex. I do think it's something that will appeal to pitchers.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like if you're Aaron Nola, it helps to have Yadier Molina on the staff. If you're Sonny Gray, I think you're going to enjoy the fact that Yadier Molina's here to be able to talk with you.
He just wants to be wanted.
Exactly. Yadier Molina, give him a call. Can you imagine being Sonny Gray and being like,
how about Nola?
Yadier Molina's calling me?
Oh, my God.
And then Sonny Gray picks up. Yachty? Oh, sorry, wrong number.
Okay, I was calling Aaron Nola. My bad.
Alex, what do you got?
Bet it or forget it. Yadier Molina's contract will be considered part of the payroll for the team. I'm just joking. All right,
They've got $10 million less to spend.
All right, guys, bet it or forget it. This week for the Blues games, there's 3 games starting tonight. We see a power play goal in 2 of the 3 games.
Forget it.
For who?
For the Blues.
Yeah, bet it. Of course.
You said so confidently after 4 games where they haven't scored once.
Blues are back, baby.
He's not wrong.
I think the power play has looked a lot better. Where I have my concerns about the 5-on-5 offense, and I'm not so sure that there's a lot of reasons for optimism there. I do think there's reasons for optimism on the power play. And frankly, it just can't be this bad long term. It's impossible. It would be the worst in the history of the NHL if they go the entire season without scoring on it.
Damn it, man. You haven't you learned from Fridays with our pick'ems? When you use demonstrative words, it doesn't work.
If you think that the Blues are not going to score a power play goal all year, God bless you. I do. I think that I'm going to go out on this limb. I'm going to be alone on this island and saying they will indeed score a power play goal.
So bottom 10 in the NHL penalty kill for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, they're going to score one.
Forget it. They'll score. Winnipeg.
On the Blues power play?
Yeah.
Shorthanded?
Where's Vancouver?
Because we went in that Arizona game.
It doesn't matter.
Third worst penalty kill.
No, you know what they'll do? Calgary's the 3rd best. That'll be when they score the power play
goal.
goal.
3 of them against Calgary.
Son of
They'll go perfect.
Come out of nowhere. They'll lose the game 5-3, and they'll have 3 power play goals.
Okay, let's not go like that.
God bless hockey.
God bless you.
I would forget this. I think they may be scoring 1.
I'm betting this, by the way. I'm saying they're going to get 1 per game.
Yeah.
Of course.
Until they put Vron on the top unit. No goal. No goal.
T-Bone?
Bet it or forget it. We talked about the 49ers earlier and how things are crumbling around them. We didn't give much credit to Minnesota. Bet or forget it. The Vikings make the playoffs in the NFC.
I'm glad you brought this up. It's something that I was thinking about talking about earlier, but we never really got to it because we ran out of time.
You're just too negative.
True.
The NFC's are really interesting. No, it's not particularly.
Replace
like
interesting for crappy.
Yeah.
The NFC is a very wide open race right now for the playoffs. When you look at the teams that would get in as of today, the divisional leaders are Philly, Detroit, San Francisco, and God bless it, Atlanta. The wild card teams as of today, Seattle, Dallas, I think those 2 teams are actually legitimately good. And Tampa Bay. I think one of Minnesota or the Rams will end up in that spot that Tampa Bay currently occupies. And between the 2, I mean, take a pick, flip a coin. They're both super mediocre. They're getting the right to lose in the first round to one of San Francisco or Detroit by 20 points. So I'll go ahead and bet it that it ends up being Minnesota. But do I believe that? I don't know. Not really.
Yeah. See, I'm not going to believe this one. I don't think Minnesota's going to get in. I think that was a game that they had to prove that they could stay competitive, and I think that's a game that San Francisco just looked and said, this is an easy win for us.
Can I make what is probably going to be a controversial statement?
Justin Jefferson is a mediocre wide receiver?
Are you about to say Washington can get in?
No. I think that Minnesota's a better team this year than they were last year. I think they've got a better
I would
defense
agree with
than
that.
they did last year.
Well, I don't know about that.
And I think if Justin Jefferson gets back, I think that their offense is going to be better than it was last year, because I think him with Addison is a better duo than what they had last year out there. So I think this is actually a better team than what they had. The record just isn't indicative of that. They've also lost to Philadelphia and Kansas City in 2 of the 4 games, and all of their losses have come by 1 score. So it's not like they've been terrible.
I'm still skeptical. I say the Rams, or I could see like a Washington. I know you were joking, but I could see Washington
Can I give
sneaking
you their
their way
upcoming
in.
schedule?
Who, Minnesota?
You tell me just quick off the top of your head, win or loss, right? Green Bay at Green Bay.
Win.
At Atlanta.
I'll say win.
Yeah.
I think they're a better football.
I think that's a toss-up because Atlanta's
Home against New Orleans.
Win.
It's a win.
At Denver.
Win.
Home against Chicago.
Win.
At Las Vegas.
Win.
It's 5 games right there.
They may never lose again.
I was going to say, okay, undefeated the rest of the season.
I think they'll probably drop one of the games that we just mentioned just because football's weird, and they're not a great team to where you can count on them every week.
That'll probably be the one I bet on.
If they go 4-1 over the next 5 weeks, you're 7-5 on the season with a chance to be able to make the playoffs down the stretch. Now, stretch run is not easy. Cincinnati, Detroit twice, and once against Green Bay. But 9 wins might get you in this NFC. So I'll say bet it.
I'm running in my head right now what the Rams will get to, because their next 5 at Dallas, at Green Bay, bye week, versus Seattle, at Arizona. And they still got San Francisco one more time, Baltimore once. I will probably bet this, but I think it's going to come down to these 2 teams.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, bet it or forget it. We see a star traded at this year's NFL trade deadline. Would you guys consider Chase Young to be a star?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
I think one of the Washington defensive ends probably gets traded.
Sweater.
Yeah. Or Chase Young. So I'll say bet it because of that.
I'm going to bet it because I think one of Judy or Sutton gets traded.
Are they a star? Like, when I think Judy and Sutton, I think Steve Smith going, that's a 3rd-tier wide receiver. And I go, yeah, he's right.
They're household names.
Until they go to another team and become a dominant wide receiver. I think you're suffering from the team you're playing on. Last year, Jerry Judy was in the star conversation, it felt like.
Really? When I think Judy, I think
Judy's super overrated. I've never been a big fan.
I think he has a name because he's on a team that's bad.
He's got a big name. So I'll say that counts.
All right, I guess we're going to count that average wide receiver.
You think
as a
Kyle
star.
Tucker is not a superstar,
That's
so,
fair.
come on.
Well, that one I've admitted I was wrong on. This one I still stand firm. So I guess if we're counting Judy and Sutton as stars, I would bet. I actually am not convinced Chase Young gets dealt, but I do think those wide receivers get moved in Denver.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, final thing here. Bet it or forget it. The majority of Cardinals fans will be happy with the way that this offseason goes.
Oh, forget it.
Yeah,
I don't think anything can happen to where Cardinals fans are like, that's an A+, because John Mozeliak's the one in charge.
It's so funny, man. My mentions every time that I mention the Cardinals, whether it's positive or mostly when it's positive.
Yeah, I was going to say, come on.
Cardinals fans are as pessimistic on their team right now as I have seen them in a long time, man. And I get it. Like, you're coming off of a 71-win season. They've earned that. They've earned that disrespect from you as a fan base.
Top 5 pick in the draft, though.
Yeah, top 5 pick. A lot of money to
could
spend.
win the number 1 pick.
Derek Gould said in his chat yesterday, based on what his numbers are showing, he could see $50 to $60 million added to the payroll via new signings.
That count the Yachty tax?
Yeah, I was going to say, Yachty's is going to be 25 mil, so.
If that's true, if you think they can add 25 or $50 to $60 million, they could go out and get Aaron Nola and add one other significant starting pitcher.
And you
you
burned it for Burns.
Yeah.
So
Whoever that
you're in
is.
a great position right now.
I would forget this, so I can't see where the Cardinals. I have a serious concern of them either A, not adding the 3rd starter and us walking into the spring training as, okay, Thompson's the 5, or going into spring training going, did they do enough to the bullpen?
The bullpen's the one that I'm not so sure about. I think they're going to say, I'm going to say bet it. I think that the Cardinals are, maybe I'm giving them too much credit. Probably
trusting.
I think they understand that they screwed up. And I think they understand that they need to add serious payroll to this team. They need to add serious influx of talent. Now, I think this may come at the cost of their offense. I wouldn't be shocked if they end up disagreeing with us and they say, you know what, we've got enough talent on the offensive side of things. We've got Donovan, we've got Edman, we can put them at second base. We're going to trade Nolan Gorman. I could totally see that happening and us being more pessimistic about their offseason than your casual Cardinals fan is, because they will see signed a bunch of starting pitching, improved the biggest weakness from a year ago. This team now appears to be headed on the right track. I would also say this. Yachty ain't coming back to lose 90 games next year. That is not happening. If he's coming back, he has been assured by this front office, we are going to make some serious changes.
Just like Nolan Arenado was assured back-to-back years.
That worked out really well. Speaking of the Cardinals and speaking of Nolan Gorman, would it be considered a success in your mind if he becomes what Kyle Schwarber has become? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex Ferrario, I'm Braden and Kylie. We got to tell you about our friends over at Apache Village RV Center. If you go to their website right now, ApacheVillageRV.com, you'll see something that they're offering, Alex, on October 20th. This is coming up later this week. You can go in for their trick or treat yourself to get a new RV at Apache Village RV Center. Go see them on October 28th. They've got the costumes, pumpkin decorating in chili. It's all taking place over there. This is a great opportunity for you to find out what they have to offer. And Alex, they've got a whole lot to offer over at Apache Village RV Center.
Two things I love, Apache Village RV and play on words, and they just nailed both of those there. So I'll be out there for that. You need to get out to their 8-acre lot in Hazelwood to check out the inventory. The best part about this is you become a part of that family. They've been doing this business for over 40 years. Third generation Meyer families. They're not pushy when you're trying to get into the RV business. They're not trying to force you into something you're not ready for. And if you think you're ready, but you're worried about the money, well, they've got financing options for you. So be a part of the Meyer family business. Be a part of Apache Village RV Center and go one better for your vacationing needs. Go Apache Village RV Center.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues back in action tonight as they visit the Winnipeg Jets, and we will have pregame coverage starting at 6:45 with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Garber for Puck Drop at 7:45. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Schwarber is who he is, and who he is a consistent power threat at the top of your order. Absolutely. If Gorman he turns out to be Schwarber, you'd be thrilled with that.
And the idea of him being Schwarber, obviously, is high power, low batting average, tons of strikeouts. I believe Schwarber led the league in strikeouts the last 2. I think that this lineup would be just fine if he, in fact, is Kyle Schwarber.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. That was the fast lane yesterday when they were asked by a listener, hey, would it be considered a success if Nolan Gorman ends up becoming Kyle Schwarber? Alex, my answer to this is an overwhelming yes. However, I think when you actually watch Kyle Schwarber night to night, it feels different than when you just look at the back of the baseball card and see, oh, he's hitting 35 to 40 home runs every year. Yeah, that's a guy that I would definitely want to be on this team. Kyle Schwarber has 415 strikeouts over the last 2 years. Let me say that one more time. Kyle Schwarber has struck out 415 times since the start of last season. He leads Major League Baseball each of the last 2 years in strikeouts. That's a lot. Now, he has also hit 46 and 47 home runs over the last couple of seasons. So with the strikeouts comes the power. Now, when you look at the stats, Alex, Nolan Gorman this season had a 117 OPS plus. Kyle Schwarber in 2018, a 117 OPS plus. In 2018, Kyle Schwarber hit 26 home runs that season and had an OPS of 823. This year for the Cardinals, Nolan Gorman hit 27 home runs and had an 805 OPS. They are basically the same. Gorman just doing this at an earlier age. Gorman's 23. That was Schwarber's age 25 season. So my question to you is, if I told you right now, you could sign up, you could hit the button, and it's guaranteed to lock it in. If Nolan Gorman over the next 5 years becomes what Schwarber has been over the last 5, which is a 225 hitter that hits an average of 40 home runs every season, would you sign up for it?
Hell yeah, brother. Someone explain to me why they wouldn't sign up for that.
Strikeout.
Well, I don't care. If you're striking out that many times, great. That you're still hitting 47 bombs in the season for me, and there's a place for that on my team. Now, you're probably going to run into the problem with this if this is the type of guy of where, he goes into the cold spell and everybody forgets that the big picture here is 40-plus home runs in a season, but the cold spell is going to be, well, you need somebody who can hit. Good news for the Cardinals is you got other options that could jump in if that need be. But, yeah, I would absolutely sign up if I'm getting this guy, because 47 bombs. And it's not so much the 47 bombs that you're going to hit in the regular season. It's the performance in the postseason. And if you're telling me that I'm getting Kyle Schwarber in the regular season, I'm assuming I'm getting Kyle Schwarber in the postseason. That's how you win championships.
And I would sign up for this because, one, you have the lineup depth that can mask his struggles if he goes through a cold spurt. It's not like he's your number 5 hitter. If he was the number 5 hitter and then 6 or 9 was an issue, I don't know if you could have a Nolan Gorman / Kyle Schwarber type in your lineup, because then if he goes cold, you're down to 4 hitters in the lineup, and that's just not going to be successful. So they've got a deep enough lineup to where he can become this guy, and if he gets cold, you can just move him down in the order. And to your point in the postseason, this is the exact kind of guy that can do what Kyle Schwarber does. And it's not so much that, when he gets out, he can hit a ton of home runs. He can kill you with any single pitch, and slugging matters once you get to the playoffs.
Didn't we just see this with Adolis Garcia? I don't think he was striking out as much, but look at what just happened in the postseason. You're talking home run in back-to-back games. You're talking about 14 RBIs. And, so he had 4 strikeouts in the previous, not last night, but the game before that, and he still hit a home run.
Now, the difference between Gorman and Schwarber walks a lot.
Oh, wow.
And that helps to increase how often he gets on base. Is why he's allowed to be the leadoff hitter. If he wasn't getting on base as often as he does, he would not be the guy that ends up batting leadoff for the Phillies. He would be somebody that's batting, closer to 6th or 7th in their order. And that's probably, Gorman is probably going to be, I think at least, a 6-hole hitter for the Cardinals. I think that's probably where he best serves as a role, where you're just like, hey, man, Just hit bombs. Like, just bombs away at all times. Don't worry about like being a 270 to 280 hitter. That's not who you are. That's fine. Hit cannons, hit rockets to the outfield all day long. That's what Schwarber is. But he's also very patient. So this year he walked 125 times. I don't think we're ever going to see Nolan Gorman doing something like that. It's just not in his range of outcomes. So that is something to keep in mind as well. I do think that the ceiling for Gorman is a little lower probably than Schwarber because of that lack of plate discipline, comparatively speaking. But if you could tell me right now that I could sign up for Schwarber, man, I would do it in a nanosecond. Schwarber is awesome.
The one concern is like home runs that Schwarber's hitting in the ballparks that he's played at compared to Gorman hitting. Like, I don't know if Gorman's ever going to be that because
they're no doubters, though. Those guys aren't affected by the ballpark in which they play.
Okay.
Like, Nolan Gorman hit, 26 home runs this year, and he's playing most of his games at Busch Stadium, and all of them were like, it didn't matter where you were, those are gone. Because the way that he hits them, it's a little different than, like, when Lars Nootbaar hits a home run, or when you've got some of these guys that are just scraping it over the wall in Yankee Stadium. Like, it's different when Gorman hits them. He's hitting 450 shots. So
okay. I'll shut up then.
I wouldn't worry about that
man.
at all.
Last time BK told me not to worry, I got 0 points in our pick 'em.
Yeah. If you think he can become this, you can't trade this in the offseason. You just can't. You don't have someone else that can profile this way. I think.
Well, then you better spend money on free agents.
Would you rather have Nolan? Excuse me. Let me ask this a different way. If I told you next year for the Cardinals, you can have one of the following two things. You can either have Nolan Gorman, which is going to be Kyle Schwarber, or you can have Dylan Cease, who has the potential to be your Zach Wheeler. What would you rather have?
I'd go Dylan Cease. Because in this situation, I'm assuming I also signed Aaron Nola.
Potentially, yeah.
And I revamped my rotation to be one of the best by trading one player.
As much as I love Cease, I'd probably have Gorman. And the reason is because I think you can still build a playoff rotation without Cease.
Because it's harder to replace the Gorman power than it is to replace the production that you're going to be getting from Dylan Cease.
It's harder to replace a 40 home run hitter and Nolan Gorman from the left side. Because as much as I like Nootbaar, like his ceiling might be 25.
Somebody on the text line asked, why didn't the Cardinals express interest in Schwarber when he was a free agent? Because of Gorman.
Yeah.
They were wrong on this when they did this with like Tyler O'Neill versus Bryce Harper.
Good.
By the way, that's a very different level of free agent than Kyle Schwarber. Both of them are really helpful pieces. One of them is a future Hall of Famer. The other is like one of the greatest accent pieces that you could possibly ask for inside of your lineup. But the reason why the Cardinals didn't want to sign, there were many. Bryce Harper, in part, was because they had Tyler O'Neill, who projected well. The reason why they didn't sign Kyle Schwarber is because they had a guy that profiled very similarly to him that was coming through their system.
If I have Lars Nootbaar who's hitting 25 and Donovan who's hitting 15, it's the same guy.
No, it's two guys.
Same thing. I'm still getting my 40 home runs.
Coming up next, we're hitting the BK and Ferrario Rewind here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about 100 West Dental, my new dentist. And I say my new dentist because, man, I've had issues with dentists in the past. One of them, the main one, was that I lost 7 teeth and had a tumor that was lying in my mouth that the previous dentist did not find. That's not the case anymore. The reason I went with 100 West Dental, first of all, it's easily located. It's just off of Manchester. But two, they are all about the preventative procedure, making sure that it's not just your teeth that are clean, making sure that your gums are healthy, your teeth are healthy, that your overall health is the number one thing for them. It's all about early detection, and that early detection is taken care of with the most modern technology. Patient experience is at the top of their mind, and the cool part about it, too, is you don't have to get on the phone and call and check your calendar to find out if you're available. No, you just go online. You go to 100westdental.com, and you can schedule your appointment. You can have virtual consultations with the doctor. Everything you need is available on their website. So go check it out, 100westdental.com, or give them a call and tell them Alex Ferrario sent you, 636-585-0100.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Hey, if you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app. It is all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
So Adolis Garcia is a really good baseball player. Unfortunately, he no longer plays for the Cardinals and instead is playing for the Texas Rangers.
Well, he never played for the Cardinals.
Well, he was here, and then they DFA'd him, and then he ended up going to the Rangers, and then they DFA'd
so
him.
they pulled the old mold special.
I bet the guy we got in DFA Garcia 4 was a great player.
Yeah, it was Brett Cecil.
It was KK.
Brett Cecil.
Then they ended up getting cash considerations in return. So, yeah, it didn't really work out for anybody involved.
Way to go, guys.
I'm not going to criticize the Cardinals for this one. I know that's going to make our text line mad at 314-399-9646, but I'm not going to criticize them for this. If you want to be critical of them for the Randy Arozarena decision, you should. If you want to be critical of them for not going out and getting Nathan Eovaldi, who signed a perfectly reasonable deal last offseason when the Cardinals needed more pitching, absolutely, go ahead. Be critical of them for that. If you want to be critical of them for going out and signing Wilson Contreras to a massive contract while clearly not understanding what kind of a player they were signing and hoping to change him after he has been a fully formed individual, be critical of that too. There's a lot that you can reasonably be critical of this team for after they won 71 games last year. The Adolis Garcia decision is not on that list for me, Alex.
I'll be critical just of their use of the 40-man roster because, you could have gotten rid of other guys. But I'm not going to be critical that the Cardinals missed out on this perennial all-star when every other team except the Texas Rangers, who also DFA'd him, said, he's not our cup of tea. We got to find somebody else. So, yeah, you're right. It's incredible what he's doing, and it sucks because the Cardinals need outfielders that can hit bombs and play good defense, and guess what? There's two of them you could have used. But for this scenario, I look at it and say, this just was a player that was never going to thrive where he was at and thrived elsewhere.
Yeah, I can't blame them because everybody else didn't want him. And that is the biggest thing for this is give credit to Garcia for developing him himself. And I'm not trying to push away anything from the Rangers did and how they helped him grow, but the Rangers gave up on him at one point, and then nobody wanted him. He decided, you know what, I'm going to take my medicine. I'm going to go down to the minor leagues. I'm going to work with the Texas Rangers, and I'm going to become a better baseball player and work on things. And in a situation in which we've seen the Cardinals, it's tough to balance developing a guy like the Rangers did in his first full season where they lost 102 games compared to the Cardinals who are trying to win while also developing. It's why people don't like to hear this. It's why Carlson only gets at-bats against lefties right now, because they don't have time to wait and develop him against right-handed pitching.
That is the correct answer.
Thank you.
The Texas Rangers had the benefit of time. They had the benefit of development at the big league level. The Cardinals do not. The first year that Adolis Garcia got everyday opportunities for the Rangers, first of all, he was 28 years old, and it came in the year 2021. This is after 2 years of the Cardinals DFAing him. 2 years later, he finally got a real opportunity with him. They went 60 and 102 that season. The next year, the second year of Adolis Garcia being an everyday player, again, he was basically this season that I'm talking about in 2022, the equivalent of Juan Yepes offensively. He ended up that season having a 10% above league average offensive season, and they won 68 games. Finally, this year, it's all come together for the team, for the player, for everybody involved. I understand why you're mad about the Cardinals right now. But let's not misdirect that anger towards the Adolis Garcia situation. That anger should be placed at other things that were actionable. I don't think they messed up here. This is like if this offseason they give up on Juan Yepes. I'm not going to be mad about that. It's like if they give up on Moises Gomez. I'm not going to be mad about that. Whoa. And if those guys end up going on elsewhere to have success, more power to them. That does not mean that it was going to work out here for them because it just they never got the opportunity and they never earned the opportunity here in St. Louis. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Looking forward to the game tonight. Who you guys think ends up going to the World Series? Is it going to be the Phillies or the Diamondbacks?
I thought when you meant game, the Blues and Jets. I'll say it's the Phillies.
I'm going to say Phillies as well.
I think the Phillies advance. Do you think that the Blues win tonight?
Hell yeah.
Pre-game coverage with Alex and Joey coming up tonight at 6:45. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane is coming up next.